champ is here! The champ is here!
Let me tell you something you already know. The world ain't all sunshine and rainbows. It's a very mean and nasty place, and I don't care how tough you are, it will beat you to your knees and keep you there permanently if you let it. You, me, or nobody is gonna hit as hard as life. But it ain't about how hard you hit. It's about how hard you can get hit and keep moving forward. How much you can take and keep moving forward. That's how winning is done.
When the moon hits your eye like a big pizza pie, that's amore. When the world seems to shine like you've had too much wine, that's amore.
7 minutes past the top of the hour. You're tuned in to the Big Talker, 106.7 FM. Good morning to all, near and far, however you may be listening today on this Wednesday, October 27th, 2021. Video portion of the program available on our YouTube channel by following us on Facebook at Big Talker 106.7 FM. Our call-in number is 910-299-7535. That's 910-299-7535 if you'd like to be a part of the show. Just one guest on the schedule today, and his name is Richard Battle. He'll be with us from the Lone Star State just after 9 o'clock Eastern Time, and Richard recently made a trip from his home, which is just outside of Austin, I believe, and made his way down to the southern border. Had an opportunity to tour the border alongside a couple of Border Patrol agents, and will give us a firsthand report as to the conditions there, what life is like for the Border Patrol agents these days, as news continues to surface surrounding another migrant caravan of about 2,000 people making its way through Mexico after clashing with police over the weekend. Of course, U.S. Customs and Border Protection detained a record high 1.7 million illegal immigrants over the previous 12 months. And the situation at our southern border continues to spiral out of control, and ultimately, these sorts of issues that have for a long, long time been mostly regionalized along that southern border of Texas, New Mexico, Arizona, California. Well, when we talk about millions upon millions of people, ultimately, as they are spread across the country, that impact is then felt throughout the nation, across the board, when we talk about, stresses to systems that have failed to be reformed by our lawmakers in Washington and elsewhere, for decades. And instead of moving forward with reforms and other sorts of ways to alleviate the stress on many of the systems that, a lot of folks rely on here in the country, the bright idea by those in Washington inside their bubble is to just expand more centralized power. That's the conversation being had, of course, right now in our nation's capital, as the two massive pieces of legislation that the Harris-Biden administration have put forward continue to get hashed out with, again, Senators Manchin and Sinema holding the line as the two Democrats in a 50-50 Senate who have yet to jump on board. Well, enjoyed our my 39th birthday yesterday. Had some family get together, little eggplant parmesan. Nice birthday cake that my wife got for me. Little Sophia on my lap. All in all, a pretty good day as we turn the calendar now 364 days now until my 40th birthday. 39 years on the planet, and if you were to ask, I'm sure, some of my high school friends and others, not sure, what their peek into the future would look like for me, but I can almost guarantee that they never thought, I'd be sitting here in this chair in a place called Wilmington, North Carolina, doing what we do day to day, Monday through Friday, the most listened to, entertaining, and informative program here around the Cape Fear region. Did catch the middle innings of the World Series last night, of course. Game 1, the Atlanta Braves knock off the Houston Astros, 3 pitches into the Fall Classic, and the Braves grab a lead and never look back. Was it a 6-2 final score? They'll pick it back up in Houston later on tonight. Then games 3, 4, and 5 in Atlanta, and the middle of the series begins on Friday over in the Peach State. And I bring up the Fall Classic this morning because we are starting to hear more and more from professional athletes and those within the entertainment industry that have differing opinions on the news of the day. And I know for a lot of folks, they'd rather just have those who are in sports, those who are in entertainment to just do what they do, entertain us, and stray away from, political activism or giving commentary on, the issues that we're facing and hash out day to day on programs like this. And to be honest, I've never been on that sort of side, the just dribble sort of way of looking at people's opinions, particularly those in athletics, those in entertainment. You take the comments for what they are and where they're coming from. I mean, even as far back as Colin Kaepernick, I remember we were just sort of getting this program launched, and the Big Talker was, back after a hiatus for a number of years, due in large part because of another media company in the area that bought out the old CCOM media and immediately dropped its most profitable and listened to format, which was, of course, News Talk. Oh, I remember that day when the media company took over, known as Davis Media. They operate a couple of stations here locally still, and a news publication known as PortCityDaily.com. And I recall, like it was yesterday, getting called into the room over on Cinema Drive where the CCOM media offices used to be, and the new owner from Williamsburg, Virginia rolled in and immediately made some off-the-cuff comments surrounding, News Talk and some of the syndicated hosts that were on the station at the time. And it was just maybe a week or so before Neil Bortz retired. And my old friend Amy was in the production room, and the new owner came storming in after Bortz said something that, I guess, as the talkmaster used to say, got his thong in a wad. And, he pulled him off the air. And that was pretty much the end of the Big Talk. Chad Adams departed, among others. They tried to push it across as an all-news station, which lasted about 10 minutes, and then, it was cut. Then somehow, some way, we were able to bring it back to life about 4.5 years ago. And it was right when we sort of jumped on the air on the signal that, was not as strong as it is today due to massive investment that was made, to bolster our signal now down towards North Myrtle Beach and up past Rocky Point. And I know points north are difficult at times, which is why we've worked over the years to develop the different platforms in which you can tune into on our website at bigtalkerfm.com, the mobile app. Sometimes if the app is a little screwy, my advice would just be to uninstall it, reinstall it. And I did that this morning, and it was up and running. Or, of course, on social media and elsewhere. And it was right when we sort of jumped on the air when the whole Colin Kaepernick thing, his kneeling and wearing socks depicting cops as pigs on him, and that started to ignite this whole debate surrounding law enforcement, athletes, kneeling during the national anthem. And even as far back as Kaepernick, I remember talking about his decisions and saying that, well, listen, I disagree wholeheartedly with his approach and thought it was in bad taste. And look where we've come since then. I mean, what was it last year? Drew Brees, the former New Orleans Saints quarterback, they were coming after him because he explained that he stood for the national anthem to commemorate and remember the sacrifice that his grandfather gave during World War II. And that was apparently good enough for him to then have to issue an apology for that. But I remember talking about Kaepernick's decision and saying that, I disagree with his approach. I think it's in bad taste, not standing for the national anthem, but that he had a right to do whatever he wanted. But when you do something as controversial and then continue to back that up, and ultimately, others followed that, if you want to call it lead, but that he would likely pay some consequences for that decision. And, well, he hasn't played one snap in the NFL since then. But many more have spoken out from the Kaepernick days, and every so often we hear from a LeBron James who makes a fool out of himself, delivering sort of a double standard comment filled with hypocrisy when you look at things that are going on around the world as compared to here in the United States. A lot of talk about the police. And I remember the NBA, of course, wasn't too friendly when the former Houston Rockets general manager, Daryl Morey, he had some negative things to say about the Chinese Communist Party. And to me, what I think probably bugs people the most is that we have a bunch of one percenters, many who come from less than ideal circumstances in their upbringing. Not all, but some are in a socioeconomic class that, many cannot even fathom in the way in which they're brought up. And when you see all of the opportunities that they've taken advantage of because of their physical skill sets, people have a tough time wrapping their head around the fact that these then one percenters spend time bashing on the country that afforded them the opportunities when they speak negatively, with really the sole purpose there is to divide, not to bring people together. But now, given the COVID situation and the vaccine debate and, the ongoing issues, of course, on the other side of the world with the Chinese communists and the massive amounts of money organizations like the NBA make off of that population, it's amazing to me, and what I find probably the most unsurprising part of all of this when it comes to athletes or other entertainers speaking out on this or that, and I know many of you probably see it too, those who don't speak the company line on issues rarely get the same attention and publicity for the things that they say. And we'll tell you about a couple of NBA basketball players this morning who have come out and have been speaking out against the subjective ways in which the news media controls the narrative. We've played you some clips from a guy by the name of Jonathan Isaac when it relates to the COVID vaccine mandates and the hesitation he has had and the well thought out explanations he's given. Another NBA player has recently been very outspoken when it comes to the Chinese Communist Party and calling on, the organization he plays for and others to do the same. So we will highlight some of their comments as we move through the program this morning. As I mentioned, Richard Battle going to join us just after 9 o'clock. Recently down to the southern border, resides in the Lone Star State. We'll get his firsthand take as to the situation at the border with another 2,000 migrants making their way up through Mexico right now, with their final destination, of course, being the United States of America. 1.7 million illegal immigrants so far in the country this year have been detained over the past 12 months. And, of course, the Biden administration basically ignoring the ongoing chaos at the U.S.-Mexico border. Plenty of local news to get to as we move through this first hour, along with some headlines coming out of the North Carolina General Assembly. And maybe a little look back, a history lesson this morning as far as how powers within the governor's office came to be back in the 90s when it comes to massive executive strength within the gubernatorial office here in North Carolina, and even some Democrats who at the time were flashing warning signs on what this could lead to. 600 days now, North Carolina has been under a state of emergency with no end in sight. Lawmakers at the North Carolina General Assembly have pushed forward legislation to try and limit some of the executive power when it comes to emergency sort of situations. Of course, that bill dead on arrival. And I don't care what side of the political aisle you're on. You'll never convince me that a politician would actually sign, Republican or Democrat, would sign a piece of legislation that would limit their powers. So, while we can point the finger and call attention to Roy Cooper and the current governor here of North Carolina, of course, I don't see a Republican doing that either. If we had an R in the office leading North Carolina's state government as compared to where we are with the king of tyranny. Your calls at 910-299-7535 if you'd like to be a part of the show. We are 23 minutes past the hour here on the Big Talker FM.
Hey everyone, Ben Hawkins here with Cross Country Mortgage. Rates are still at historic lows, and there has never been a better time to purchase your dream home or refinance your existing. With over 300 loan products including conventional, FHA, VA, USDA, renovation, and jumbo, we are certain we have the right loan product for you and your family. Call me today to be pre-qualified to make the offer on your next dream home. 910-352-3373 or visit my website at lendwithben.com.
Well, hey, y'all, it's Holly Brewer
and Amy Ludwig and Kristen Ludwig
from Just Think, the podcast where we don't want to tell you what to think. We just challenge you to do it. We're happy to have some of our episodes featured right here on 106.7 The Big Talker on Saturdays at 11 a.m. So we hope you join us in the conversation and most importantly, just think.
Hey everyone, Ben Hawkins here with Cross Country Mortgage. Rates are still at historic lows, and there has never been a better time to purchase your dream home or refinance your existing. With over 300 loan products including conventional, FHA, VA, USDA, renovation, and jumbo, we are certain we have the right loan product for you and your family. Call me today to be pre-qualified to make the offer on your next dream home. 910-352-3373 or visit my website at lendwithben.com.
Hear Tom Goolsby on the Joe Catanacci Show.
People with common sense know that the entire theory of socialism is one big lie.
The Big Talker 106.7 FM.
Hi, I'm Dr. Gabe Frank of the Frank Institute, and I wanted to tell you about our IV vitamin, infusion, and hydration therapies. These IVs are the most effective treatment for vitamin and nutrition deficiencies available, and with our wide range of offering, your treatment can be tailored to your specific needs. Whether you struggle with hydration or nutritional deficiency, injury recovery, low energy, please feel free to check out our IV infusions today. Schedule an appointment at 910-679-8534 or check out all our treatment services at www.frankinstitute.com.
I'm Rob Renz, Marine Corps veteran, entrepreneur, and local business owner. Join me and my buddies on Monday from 6 to 7 for Signal Fire Radio, where we discuss how to successfully transition from the military and become a Signal Fire in your community. That's Signal Fire Radio, Mondays from 6 to 7 p.m. on 106.7 The Big Talk.
I'm a scat man. I'm a scat man.
All right, as we get set for our first news timeout of the day with Jeff Rivenbark, WWAY News, coming up here in just a few minutes. The municipal elections, of course, Election Day, this upcoming Tuesday, November 2nd. And well, here in the city of Wilmington, we've seen poll numbers dismal as far as voter turnout goes so far, as we heard from New Hanover County Republican Party Chairman Will Connect the other day. Well, no doubt Democrats outpacing, as you would expect, given the fact that we've got, even though it's a, quote unquote, nonpartisan race here within the Wilmington City Council, two Democrats running, one, of course, on the far left of, the political scales. The other one, well, at least he's a capitalist when it comes to, his way of looking at things. That's, when you break down sort of, the Democrat Party these days, you've got, the center of the political spectrum, independents that kind of sway one way or the other on certain issues, whether it be fiscal issues or social issues. But as part of that new progressive wing of the Democrat Party, there's no doubt about it, based on the things that they say, the proposals that they lay out, far away from, your granddaddy's Democrat Party. When we look at our way of life in a capitalistic society. Of course, the municipal elections Tuesday here, and then, well, all of the attention already starting to turn over into the midterms this time next year, 2022. And the majority in Congress, on the line in both the House and the Senate. Typically, the first midterm election following the inauguration of a president doesn't necessarily work out very well traditionally for the political party in power. Here in North Carolina, there will be a heated race, of course, for a U.S. Senate seat, with Richard Burr fading away into the sunset. I think he's served 3 terms, 6-year terms, 18 years as our North Carolina senior senator. Senator Tillis being the other after winning re-election this past November. Well, on the Republican side, with the GOP primary, having spoken with all 3 of the leading candidates, Ted Budd and Mark Walker, along with former Governor Pat McCrory. Well, he actually has put out an internal poll released by his campaign showing him garnering 40% support in the GOP primary, putting him 15 points ahead of Representative Ted Budd. Representative Budd, of course, endorsed by former President Trump back at the NC GOP convention earlier this summer. Of course, he has great notoriety when it comes to name ID among likely GOP voters, given the fact that he was our former governor and then went on to host, as he'll tell you, a very successful morning news radio program out there in Charlotte on WBT for a while before tossing his name in the hat for this Republican nomination in this U.S. Senate race. So former North Carolina Governor Pat McCrory, according to his campaign, the odds-on favorite to take the GOP nomination come February of next year. Quick timeout, local news, and then we will get into some other local headlines when we return. Yesterday, the 13-member board that oversees the over $1 billion in profits from the hospital sale met for the first time. The public had an opportunity to speak to those board members. We'll bring you the results of that conversation when we get back right here on the Big Talker 106.7 FM.
Hello, I'm Jeff Rivenbark with WWAY News. In Columbus County, one man is dead following a shooting in Whiteville. Police say the shooting happened around 9 o'clock Tuesday night at the Sandy Ridge Apartments. When law enforcement arrived, they were told Tony Jashawn Baker had been taken to the hospital in a car where he later died of his injuries. The incident remains under investigation. In Santa Fe, New Mexico today, law enforcement authorities are scheduled to discuss initial findings about a fatal movie set shooting with a prop gun discharged by actor Alec Baldwin that left a cinematographer dead and the film director wounded. The news conference by the Santa Fe County Sheriff and District Attorney this morning may shed new light on a deadly sequence of events that has baffled film set safety experts. Baldwin has described the killing as a tragic accident. Court records say an assistant director grabbed the gun from a cart and indicated the weapon was safe by yelling, "Cold gun." Back in North Carolina, a top Republican lawmaker says legislative action on a final state government budget could happen as soon as next week, with or without formal support from Governor Roy Cooper. House Speaker Tim Moore says he, Senate Leader Phil Berger, and House and Senate Democratic leaders met in person Friday with Cooper to negotiate. Moore said Republicans could act after receiving another Cooper offer. The governor and GOP leaders could agree to a plan that Cooper can sign, or lawmakers could go forward without Cooper's support. That could lead to a veto and an override attempt. And Lelandtown leaders have announced some new businesses, including a 7-Eleven, a cookout, and a Take 5 oil change. The new businesses will be in a development on Highway 17 close to the Chick-fil-A called Leland Corners. Gerry Fidmore, who serves as the town's Economic and Community Development Director, says he hopes to soon announce plans for the development of a well-known home improvement store. For more on these stories, head over to WWAYTV3.com. I'm Jeff Rivenbark. Have a great day.
I'm Rob Renz, Marine Corps veteran, entrepreneur, and local business owner. Join me and my buddies on Monday from 6 to 7 for Signal Fire Radio, where we discuss how to successfully transition from the military and become a signal fire in your community. That's Signal Fire Radio, Mondays from 6 to 7 p.m. on 106.7 The Big Talk.
Happy Wednesday, everybody. I'm WWAY meteorologist Ramel Carpenter with your Storm Track 3 forecast. Another beautiful day on tap across the Cape Fear. Not going to be as breezy as it was on our Tuesday, but still expecting plenty of sunshine and temperatures getting into the upper 60s and the low 70s for afternoon highs. And heading into the overnight hours tonight, we're expecting mostly clear skies. If you're inland of the coast, we'll be dropping down into the upper 40s. Closer to the immediate coastline, we're dropping down to the middle 50s. Get your full forecast on WWAY and WWAYTV3.com.
This news and weather is brought to you by Two Men and a Truck. For your free quote, go to twomenandatruck.com. twomenandatruck.com.
A little chilly over the last couple of mornings, but then warming up to a great day weather-wise, and beautiful picture on our Facebook page right now over the Cape Fear River with the battleship North Carolina in the background. Of course, just a couple of weeks away from the annual Southeast North Carolina Veterans Day Parade. Was it sencveteransparade.com if you want to get more details on what will be a great weekend here in downtown Wilmington. Kicks off out on Wrightsville Beach with a Veterans Boat Parade. That'll take place Friday afternoon, leading into the Veterans Day Parade a couple of Saturdays from now. As we mentioned, going into the break, locally, of course, less than a week to go before the municipal election, so that's sort of on the minds of many here in the city of Wilmington, particularly over in Leland and elsewhere. This conversation we're having at the county level here in New Hanover regarding the $89 million that's been laid out by the county manager, Chris Coudray, a 3-year plan to try and stymie the violence we've seen throughout the community, along with getting a handle on some school safety issues following the shooting that took place in late August at one of the high schools. And another topic, of course, is the sale of the hospital and the monies from that sale. 8 months after New Hanover Regional Medical Center was sold to Novant Health, the 13-member board that oversees the $1.25 billion netted from the sale is now meeting and gathering input from people like you and me in the community. The New Hanover County Endowment met at the Convention Center last night to hear from residents on ways the money can be spent. And again, this is part of the, I think, frustrating way of life when it comes to you, the ordinary citizen, having an opportunity to speak your mind to elected officials and otherwise appointed board members, such as those that sit on this endowment board. Each speaker was allowed to talk for 3 minutes. So, and I get it, these are the leadership roles. With that comes decision rights, this, that, and the other. A lot of folks, have the thought, and rightfully so, that if you're involved in the good old boy network, as it were, or within certain circles, then seems like those are the groups of people who really have a lot of say as to the direction we move in as a community, while your voice, equally is important in some cases, but rarely heard, given the fact that you only have a few minutes. And I understand that, we need to have guidelines, and we can't be here for 2.5 weeks listening to every person that wants to vet and deliver, long-winded comments. I wholeheartedly understand that situation, but when you've got issues like mandates in place for an entire county that are now approaching 2 months when it comes to the muzzles, and then people do email, write, make phone calls, and for all intents and purposes, certain boards don't even pay a lick when it comes to engaging and speaking with folks who in some cases have some valuable points that they make, yet are basically shunned away to the side and told to sit in the corner, we know better. Now, we know the position from our New Hanover County Commission chair as it relates to some of that money from the profits of the hospital sale. She wanted to basically write the check and then figure out the plan. And she wanted to do that with the profits from the hospital sale. And then other commissioners made note that some of that money was tied up in investment, and we didn't necessarily need to go into that piggy bank, so to speak, to look at ways in which we could help fund investments, hopefully, that have some sort of achievable goals attached alongside them. So then we can compare and contrast after and when this 3-year framework that the county manager has laid out, when it's ultimately the details are finished and a vote is in place and then enacted, Spence Broadhurst serves as the chair of the the New Hanover County Endowment, and he made mention that this is just the beginning of a long process that will go into next year, and their board will not start accepting proposals until September of next year. In fact, they're going to move forward with the appointment of a community advisory council that will then develop ideas for the endowment when it comes to investing part of that $1.25 billion in profits from the sale of the hospital. Mr. Broadhurst also made mention that they're in the process of hiring the endowment's CEO, which they hope to have done by the end of the year. And then from there, they'll start to take ideas and begin to develop the criteria or guidelines for the grant money that will then be distributed throughout the community. There will be another listening session coming up in December. Details are not finalized just yet. So about a month from now, you'll have another opportunity to speak to those who are overseeing that the massive amount of money from the sale of the hospital. If you would like to speak or contribute to that next listening session, you can do so by going to their website at nhcendowment.org. That's nhcendowment.org. And there's a way to go there and sign up for the December 1st listening session and make suggestions and recommendations without actually going to the session in person. Now, we hope, of course, that these board members in good faith read and digest some of the comments that will be delivered from members of the community across New Hanover County. That's nhcendowment.org. Our call-in number is 910-299-7535. Richard Battle going to join us just after 9 o'clock this morning. He's fresh off a trip to the southern border. We're going to get a firsthand report after talking with Border Patrol agents. Has the situation at our southern border and really within the broken immigration system. And that's, of course, the way in which this gets twisted and turned, as it was pretty much for the entire time President Trump was in the White House, and prior to him becoming the 45th president of the United States, was that the media does a great job of painting broad strokes rather than giving everyone the entire picture. Make no mistake, as someone who comes from a family of immigrants, as someone who is married to a wife who is one generation in as an American, meaning her parents were both immigrants. This way in which they're able to twist and turn a conversation when it comes to immigration, in that if you are for border security, then you are against legal immigration. The system has been broken for a long, long time, and of course, there's no appetite in Washington, D.C. to reform it, to make it affordable, to make it efficient, to allow people from all over the world to get here in a manner that won't, of course, destroy any sort of savings or financial security that you have at the tune of thousands upon thousands upon thousands of dollars and years on end to get legal status in the country. That's one separate argument, of course, and debate that needs complete reformation, particularly when it comes to the workforce within certain industries that we cannot attract American citizens to. That's across the board when it comes to the workforce these days. And then there's the other issue, of course, as to border security and having the proper resources in place to make sure those who are responsible for that security have the necessary funds to do what they need to do. Two separate issues within one general topic, and yet those in Washington, D.C., of course, who supposedly have our best interests in mind as American citizens, continue to do nothing. Instead, working on a massive spending bill that apparently won't cost us a thing, us middle-class people. It's not going to cost you nothing. We're going to spend $3 trillion and it'll cost you nothing. Yeah, okay. And this ultimately, an effort to widen the quote-unquote social safety net of the government. And how's that working out when it comes to lifting people up to be more independent and individually minded? It's more this group thought way of looking at things with a more centralized, nationalized government to oversee anything and everything you do. And it's pretty much that simple. When we get back, some news within the North Carolina General Assembly as relates to some legislative proposals that have been making their way through the State House and Senate, and also kind of a look back as far as how the governor's powers came to be following a constitutional amendment back in 1996 that changed the way when it comes to the oversight and power that one person has as the governor here in the state of North Carolina. In fact, well, Governor Cooper, of course, as you know, if you've listened to this program at all over the last 3 years, Governor Cooper has signed more vetoes, meaning stopping legislation in its tracks, than all other governors combined since that 1996 decision to allow veto power to the top executive within our state government. And guess who backed that effort when it comes to the veto stamp? Well, yes, it was then State Senator Roy Cooper who helped push this over the finish line, and now the governor who has stood in the way of more legislation and state budget spending than any other governor over the course of the last 25 years. We're 12 minutes in front of the hour here on the Big Talker, 106.7 FM.
Hi, this is Justin Humphreys from the Humphreys Law Firm on Eastwood Road. The Humphreys Law Firm is located in Lumina Station, Wilmington, North Carolina, practices civil litigation, intellectual property, commercial, and residential real estate. Please give us a call at 910-332-0721 or visit us on our website, which is www.humphreysfirm.law. You can also listen to me every Thursday from 6 to 7 p.m. on the Big Talker 106.7 FM.
This news and weather is brought to you by Two Men and a Truck. For your free quote, go to twomenandatruck.com. twomenandatruck.com.
Here, Tom Goolsby on the Joe Catanacci Show.
People with common sense know that the entire theory of socialism is one big lie.
The Big Talker 106.7 FM.
Hey, this is Matt Ham, co-founder of Uprint Faith and Personal Development. Join us for Wake Up Our Faith, a real conversation about living out your faith between Sundays, streaming live every Wednesday at 11 a.m. on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. Catch the replay every Saturday and Sunday at 8 a.m. on Wilmington's Big Talker 106.7 FM. Stop by and visit us on the web at uprint.life.
Folks, we all know ongoing road construction and traffic can weigh heavy on your vehicle. Since 2006, O'Leary's Automotive Repair has provided comprehensive repair services at affordable prices to get you back on the road in no time. Their ASE-certified technicians will help you find a cost-effective repair and maintenance alternatives. O'Leary's has multiple locations in the area in Hampstead, Leland, the Myrtle Grove area, Ogden, and Wrightsboro. O'Leary's Automotive Repair, a trusted, locally owned business since 2006.
I'm K.O. Davis from K.O.'s Coast to Coast Tree, and I want to be your tree man.
When your trees need cut, two letters to know. One is a K, the other is an O. K-O.
Tree man. Proper trimming is the most important thing that you can do, so don't just hire anybody to do it. You need someone that knows what they're doing.
K-O.
Call the professionals at KO's Coast to Coast Tree and visit KOTrees.com.
Hey folks, Ramsey personality Ken Coleman here. Every day we get calls from people in all walks of life who all want the same thing, a plan. Whether you're stuck in a job that you have no passion for or you want to know how to save for retirement, you can get advice from the experts right here on The Ramsey Show.
Welcome back, my friends, to the show that never ends. We're so glad you could attend. Come inside, come inside. There behind the glass stands a real blade of grass. Be careful as you pass. Move along, move along. Come inside, the show's about to start. Guaranteed to blow your head apart. Rest assured, you'll get your money's worth.
Another beautiful morning here along the coast, southeastern North Carolina, here on the Big Talker 106.7 FM. As we try and do it at least a few times a week, bring the news from Raleigh here to Wilmington and the Cape Fear region. Legislative news, rather uneventful throughout the early portion of the week, but that may not be the case in the days ahead, as North Carolina State House Speaker Tim Moore has promised a busy week of legislative action when it comes to redistricting and, of course, the budget. We'll get to that in a moment. There was a bill floated earlier this marathon session that would take a look at voting here in North Carolina and putting some things in place so what we saw occur last year doesn't happen again. House Bill 259 is known as the Election Integrity Act, and we know that certain states have moved forward with similar bills. In Georgia, of course, garnering a lot of attention this spring, and then the state of Texas most recently. Though when you look at some of the proposals and things that were put forth in those two states as compared to other states across the country, they never do an apples-to-apples comparison, of course, in the news. It's always, Republicans suppressing people's efforts to vote. Yet, when you do an apples-to-apples comparison, you quickly find out, of course, that many of the laws and new rules that are put in place in places like Georgia and Texas are already in place, particularly in Democrat-run states across the country. They never, add that to the story, of course, to provide, an objective and a fair way of looking at, stories that then could potentially sway a citizen's way of looking at the people who represent them. So the Election Integrity Act right now looks like it's going nowhere fast in that even the sponsors of this bill are asking that it be removed from the legislative calendar and returned to the Rules Committee to address several amendments that are and will soon be considered. House Bill 259, the Election Integrity Act, would mandate that all election machines in North Carolina be made here in the U.S. of A. The bill would also require additional reporting requirements from the State Board of Elections following a post-election audit for a general election. And then, of course, there were some in Raleigh who wanted to inspect certain voting machines across North Carolina, particularly in Durham County, to check for an internet connection, which could make them susceptible to fraud through possible computer hacking. Well, the executive director of the State Board of Elections got in the way and blocked attempts to randomly inspect machines. Not sure why. Of course, we know in Durham County, as in many counties across our state, you kind of never really understand how votes all of a sudden come spilling in at like 4 o'clock in the morning. Durham County, of course, helped Governor Cooper a few years back. It looked like Pat McCrory had it won in 2016, and then all of a sudden, middle of the night, and Durham County adds in a couple thousand more votes to take Governor Cooper over the top. I remember one time vividly here in our neck of the woods, it was a race for the state Senate, and it was the longest-serving state senator in the history of the General Assembly. His name, R.C. Soules. Controversial figure, as our friend Chad Adams highlighted during his days as the host of this program and on this station. All sorts of weird, frankly, things that went on within his personal life that have been well documented in publications and elsewhere. But nonetheless, when he was embroiled in one of his latest controversies years ago, I vividly remember watching election returns come in, as that was my role here at the Big Talker at the time, to provide that sort of news element to Chad's show. And he was running against a woman by the name of Betty Fennell, and Betty had it won. And then all of a sudden, some little district in Columbus County, at the 11th hour of the election, on election night, just had enough votes to help Senator Soules surpass Miss Fennell. Well, I'll always remember that. And like, boy, that looks a little strange. And, of course, nothing ever came of that. So now, given that there were massive attempts last year during the height of the pandemic to loosen rules and put additional things in place without legislative support in many instances, it was unelected bureaucrats and lawsuits that aimed to change election law. Well, states decided that they wanted to re-examine, like Georgia, Texas, and here in North Carolina. But right now, it looks like that bill is going nowhere fast. This week, public hearings have also been held in the legislative building in Raleigh and across the state on the redistricting maps from the state Senate and the House. Of course, North Carolina adding an additional congressional seat to its delegation next year due to the new census data. As far as some of the local districts in terms of the state House and Senate, doesn't look like the maps will change much for our region here in southeastern North Carolina. And negotiations continue in Raleigh surrounding the state budget, one of just a few states in the union that have yet to enact a budget for the fiscal year that began back on July 1st. Of course, we have not had a budget in place when it comes to state spending for the last couple of years, meaning we've had to revert back to prior budgets as required by state law because the governor and Republicans have been unable to come together to make that happen. Well, according to Senate Leader Phil Barger, he met with Governor Cooper and State House Speaker Tim Moore late last week, and there could be a vote in the legislature moving into the first week of November with or without the governor's support. So then we revert back to where we started here. Governor, if he doesn't get what he wants, we've seen it happen time and time again, will likely issue that veto stamp, and we'll see if, they can persuade enough Democrats to override that potential veto if and when it comes. Of course, items that are being looked at and negotiated right now include raises and bonuses for teachers and state employees. Never heard that one before. Money for education, and proposals that have been put forth to lower the tax burden on you, the business owner, and you as an individual here in North Carolina. That's been a concerted effort by Republicans in the North Carolina General Assembly over the last 10 years to lower individual income taxes and corporate taxes that are levied on businesses. As we head to the top of the hour, your calls again at 910-299-7535. We've got Richard Battle coming up at the top of the 9 o'clock hour. And the top of the hour newscast coming your way right after this.
keeping Ocean Isle informed. The Big Talker 106.7 FM WFBT, Carolina Beach.
6 days to Election Day in Virginia. The race for governor capturing the national spotlight. Republican Glenn Youngkin, Democrat Terry McAuliffe running neck and neck, according to the polls. And hoping to tip the balance in his favor, McAuliffe hosted President Biden at a campaign rally yesterday in heavily blue Northern Virginia. Previously, McAuliffe admitted that Mr. Biden's sagging popularity is a drag on his campaign. No agreement yet among Democrats on a compromise version of President Biden's $1.75 trillion social spending plan remains a subject of solid Republican opposition. Final agreement may not be reached before the president departs tomorrow for a pair of summits in Europe.
Several Democratic leaders met with Biden at the White House Tuesday. Afterwards, Representative Joyce Beatty, who chairs the Congressional Black Caucus, was sounding confident. But the Democrats are struggling to reduce some programs and eliminate others. And Representative Pramila Jayapal, who chairs the Congressional Progressive Caucus, cautioned yet again.
Nothing's agreed to until everything's agreed to.
And that report from correspondent Mike Gracia. Is the Pfizer COVID vaccine safe for younger kids? Dr. Eric Rubin, a voting member of an FDA advisory panel, says, quote, "We're never going to learn about how safe the vaccine is until we start giving it," adding that's the way it goes. The FDA panel has endorsed a smaller size dose of the Pfizer vaccine for youngsters 5 to 11 years of age. The CDC will get the final word. We'll soon be hearing from investigators discussing initial findings in the fatal movie set shooting in which Alec Baldwin fired a prop gun, killing a cinematographer, wounding the movie's director. News conference scheduled for later today by the Santa Fe County Sheriff and District Attorney. We could get word on whether any criminal charges will be filed. Wall Street, Dow futures up 18 points. More on these stories at townhall.com.
Tell me why Relief Factor is so successful in lowering or eliminating pain. I'm often asked that question. Pete and Seth Talbot, the father and son founders of Relief Factor, tell me they believe our bodies were designed to heal. The doctors who formulated Relief Factor selected the 4 best ingredients, 100% drug-free ingredients that each help your body deal with inflammation. Order the 3-week quick start now. Discount it to only $19.95 to see if it will work for you too. Call 800-500-8384. ReliefFactor.com.
Right now, people are home with their pets more often, and I think now, especially with the shedding, they're more cognizant of what's going on and that it's an actual issue, and Dynovite has helped tremendously in our house with that.
I just heard the Dynovite commercial so many times, I said, you know what, I'll give it a shot, and I ordered it and tried it, and it worked.
The Dynovite, the being at home, working with them, they all love it. Me and Chewy are together 24/7.
Within 3 weeks, he's not scratching and itching, and he's an all-around happier dog.
DINOVITE.com.
India's Supreme Court clearing the way for an investigation of allegations the government used Israeli-made spyware to snoop on journalists, critics, and opposition politicians.
A committee headed by a former Supreme Court judge has been given 8 weeks to investigate claims that spyware, known as Pegasus, was used to illegally snoop on critics of India's government. The phone numbers of activists, politicians and journalists were on a database linked to clients of the Israeli firm NSO, which developed the software. In announcing an inquiry, India's Chief Justice, N.V. Ramana, said allegations of a violation of privacy needed to be examined and that technology may be having a chilling effect on press freedom in India.
The BBC's Rajini Vaidyanathan. Sudan's supposed prime minister and his wife have been allowed to return home a day after they were detained when the military seized power in a coup. News and analysis, townhall.com. Democrats reportedly working on a plan to tax the unrealized gains of wealthy investors.
Iowa Senator Joni Ernst says she's no fan of the plan to tax investors on their theoretical gains.
Stocks or other assets like real estate, where they actually haven't seen any money yet.
Ernst tells the Salem Radio Network the value of such investments can decline as well as increase.
Well, how do you do that? And what happens if you lose money in your stock portfolio? Does the government give you money back?
Ernst says such a tax would severely impact farmers in her state, where many families are land rich but cash poor. Bob Agnew reporting.
Republican Senator Marsha Blackburn of Tennessee going to bat for essential workers, authoring a bill that would protect them from being fired over vaccine mandates. It's called the Keeping Our COVID-19 Heroes Employed Act, co-sponsored by a half dozen other senators, all of them Republicans. More on these stories at townhall.com.
The champ is here! The champ is here! The champ is here! The champ is here!
Let me tell you something you already know. The world ain't all sunshine and rainbows. It's a very mean and nasty place, and I don't care how tough you are, it will beat you to your knees and keep you there permanently if you let it. You, me, or nobody is gonna hit as hard as life. But it ain't about how hard you hit. It's about how hard you can get hit and keep moving forward. How much you can take and keep moving forward. That's how winning is done.
When the moon hits your eye like a big pizza pie, that's amore. When the world seems to shine like you've had too much wine, that's amore.
Heading into the second hour of our program on this beautiful Wednesday here across southeastern North Carolina. Your calls at 910-299-7535 if you'd like to be a part of the show. 910-299-7535. You can also keep the conversation going through our social media platforms. Find us on Facebook. Subscribe to our YouTube channel if you'd like to get a video edition of our program. Of course, if you've missed part of the discussion, or you're looking for a guest interview from prior programs, you can log on to my website at joecats.com, joecats.com, and get a podcast version of the show each and every day just after 10 o'clock Eastern Time. Moving into the break, we were talking on some statewide news, of course, regarding the budget, the redistricting, and it's amazing, as we kind of highlighted earlier in the first hour, the inability for the media to tell the entire story. We had, immigration topic, and from that is legal immigration, follow the flow chart, illegal immigration, two very distinct differences, yet it gets muddied up anytime we talk about border security and making sure that our systems are supporting those responsible for keeping things calm at the southern border and deterring human trafficking, drug trafficking, and the massive amounts of people that continue to pour into the country. No appetite, of course, in Washington at this hour to hone in on that sort of stuff, along with the fact that there's been no effort over the course of 35 years to reform the legal immigration system. So folks, like the thousands that are coming up through Mexico now, have a way in which they can get here in an affordable, efficient way, in a way that lends towards providing a way of life that many could never imagine possible in the lands in which they come from, as told by the tens of millions of people who have come here and have lived that way of life over the last 100 years or so. So two very distinct things. And then within the state, of course, we hear this all the time as well. If you challenge the amount of money we pay into the public education system, for instance, then you're against the teachers and you want the schools to rot. Or if you say, hey, maybe we can provide more option and choice, well, you don't want minorities to learn. It's the typical playbook that we hear, one from the Democrat Party, and that just is then passed along to what you see as far as news coverage goes. Voting laws and other sorts of legislative proposals geared towards election security. We hear the same sort of tired argument from those that get on the TV and tell you what and how to think. Well, here in North Carolina, as we made mention, The governor did not have as much traditionally as much executive power as what we see today. In fact, North Carolina did not let governors veto legislative proposals until 1996 through a constitutional amendment that had been backed by, yes, a state senator named Roy Cooper. He faced opposition from one Democrat, his name Representative Dan Blue. And in fact, he wrote in the News and Observer back in the 90s. Representative Blue, who was then the State House Speaker from the Raleigh area, actually helped stop veto bills from passing the House during his 4 years as the State House Speaker. He warned that the veto power will shift decision rights away from the 170 legislators that will make up the representation within state government and place it in the hands of a strong executive. Gave the warning signs 25 years ago, and now look at where we are, rather. 600 days under a state of emergency that has been put in place by Governor Cooper, over a third of his entire tenure in office, with no end in sight. At the time, Representative Blue said the real threat would be to concentrate power on an individual who is much more visible and more available to be influenced by special interests, by financial contributors, and by those with the loudest voice. Peeking into the future a bit back in the 90s. Look at where we are today. 910-299-7535 is our number if you'd like to call in. And caller, you're with us. I hope all is well on this Wednesday. Good morning.
It is well, and it's mostly because I grew up in those 90s, and I kind of seen some of this movie before about, I think you're insinuating, you're implying, I'm kind of developing a theme here, Joe Catanacci, that perhaps you don't fully trust our government to effectively and properly administer the governance of this, the greatest experiment in the history of the world of a free people self-governing. I mean, I'm just kind of, I got to read between the lines here. I got to kind of sift through, all the dropping knowledge that's falling out of the 9th floor of the Murchison building this morning. I'm just running around with a bucket trying to catch a couple droplets of it, but I think that's where this is going. Is that the case, sir?
I'm just trying to make the case. See here, lay it out for everyone to see and hear, and you can decide. You hear and understand where I'm coming from, but here's all the proof that backs up my thoughts on these issues, these pressing issues of the day, and the argument that's being made to us right now that, well, we should give more power, more influence, and more money to those who yield these decision rights right now. How's that working out for us?
I have an example for you here. If you will, have you ever gone to the DMV?
Well, if you can get an appointment at the DMV, sorry.
This is true. Imagine going to the DMV. And we all know the problems with the DMV, and you got to wait, and then you got the line. Imagine going into the DMV, Joe Catanacci, and observing everything going on in the DMV with a long list of the problems, and you observe it, and you come out and you say, I know what the problem is. The problem is all the people in the waiting room. That's the problem at the DMV. Because that's pretty much what we're being told with our government right now is like, you know what the problem with all the wait times at the DMV is? It's all the people that are waiting. Like, huh? What? What?
It's all that dang.
No.
It's all that dang mail turning up in the sorting centers as to the why I'm still waiting for thousands of dollars worth of checks from other employers right now, going on 14 days since they were sent out in the mail from across town.
Yeah, good. Well, it's them darn private industries that run the postal system. That's obviously the. Wait. What? Oh no, the government runs that too. So the DMV's not working really good. The Postal Service isn't working really good. And I'm being a little facetious, but the point is the normal day-to-day things that we need to just function as a society, the government has shown over and over again for decades, not weeks, not months, decades, that they're not really good at doing the primary job they have, which is administrating the things they need as government to keep the society and the country functioning. But yet they want to focus on these really big things and massive amounts of money and massive amounts of growth for stuff that is superfluous to what good government does, and they never fix the little things. You went to Catholic school. Wasn't there a Bible verse about being faithful in the little things before I give you big things? Well, they told us over and over and over again in the little things that we're not doing really good on this. It's like talking about these meetings you're talking about. If we're having these hearings and people not getting a voice, that all goes into it. We've spent so much time not taking care of the little things of government that the big things are completely out of control now. And we're not going to fix those big things until we start getting some of these little things back in line.
Hey, Andrew, let me ask you, given that last week you joined us and delivered, I think, the best way of looking at some of the issues we have with the supply chains and the ports and the backups. How has that, now that we're a week and a half, 2 weeks since our commander-in-chief told us that the ports were going to be open 24/7. How has that, has that helped alleviate some of the stress in the cargo ships? Are they now coming in and rolling out? Or, oh, wait, now the Biden administration is imposing new fines on carriers at the nation's busiest ports to help, try and get things moving? So now carriers will be charged $100 for each lingering container per day, starting November 1st, so we're going to fine our way out of the supply chain crisis that we're living through.
So Joe and Secretary Pete walked into the DMV, observed all the problems they're having, and said, you know what we really need to do? We need to fine everybody in the waiting room. That'll solve this problem, because that's essentially what they did here. Now, there's a little bit of a background of it. What is happening is these companies are just leaving their stuff at the port because it's free to sit at the port right now. And it's a lot cheaper than putting it in the warehouses because they can't move any of it. The problem, so the basic underlying theory is okay. The problem is that's not the problem. The problem isn't them leaving it there to save themselves some money. The problem is there's no way to get it out of the ports. We've already talked about this: the truck driver shortage, the regulatory problems, and let's just call this what it is right up front right now. Joe Biden cannot address one of the biggest problems at the ports because he is the most, these is his words, not mine. I'll paraphrase a little bit, but you can look this up. He is the most pro-union president we've ever had. He has said this repeatedly. He's very proud of it. That's fine. You can do that. But wait a minute. Why are our ports ranked below? Long Beach is ranked below Mumbai, Kenya. 300 something on the list of efficiency in ports. Why is that? That's outrageous. Because for decades and decades, any chance, any attempts, any innovation to automate our ports, mechanize our ports, upgrade our ports has been held up not only by the regulations in the state of California, but by the multiple unions. There's 4 or 5 different unions that deal with it. They don't want that because it cuts down on their power. He can't touch that politically. He wouldn't touch it anyway because it's just the way it's ingrained in him. So we're going to talk about all these other issues, and we're never going to deal with that one. So remember, go back to his White House address 2 weeks ago. We talked about who's the people he thanked. The first 3 people were people involved with the unions. If you're not willing to get the unions at the table to actually change, not just give them something they want, none of this is going to get worked out. It's a big piece of this puzzle, and the president's not even able to talk about it out loud, and I don't think he's even able to process it because of the way his worldview works.
And, in the meantime, you, I, and me, and everyone else around the country continues to deal with, massive increases in prices when it comes to the goods that we consume day to day, if we can find those goods on the store shelves, and we see no end of that in sight. And once again, the bright idea is let's expand, the government's reach and power with another, $4 trillion in spending. That's still stuck in the mud, thankfully, up in Washington, D.C. Do they get that over the finish line, Andrew, as we wrap up here this morning before we go to break? Do we get that over the finish line? Do Democrats get that agenda item, which would be the shining achievement of this administration, if in fact they're able to do it? Do they push this forward at the end of the day?
No. Well, they will. But you watch. Remember, we started out with this thing being about $1.5 trillion, and Joe wanted it to be around $3 or $4 trillion. They keep now they're down to about $1.9 trillion on it. It's going to be somewhere between that $1.5 to $2 trillion. They'll throw something through eventually, but it's really ugly. Even if they win now, I don't think the president's going to get anything even from his own supporters out of it because it's been so drug out. It's a mess, and it's not going to help them. And the Christmas season is going to be a mess, and it's going to be the economy stupid all next year. And the administration is going to have to shoulder a lot of the blame for it. And this package is not going to help that, even if they do get everything they want in it. I would argue it's probably even going to make it worse.
Andrew, thanks so much for the call. As always, your calls are welcome anytime here on this great program that we offer day to day here on the Big Talker FM.
Love being with you. Do it anytime you want me to, my friend. Take care.
That's our good friend Andrew Donaldson over at Ordinary Times Magazine. That's ordinary-times.com if you want to find out more about some of the work that he puts in day to day, the writing he does, along with some of the other contributors that we've had from their publication on our show over the last couple of months. John McCumber also does some great work in the world of cybersecurity, and in a time where there's a lot of talk surrounding big tech. He's kind of been our go-to when it comes to the World Wide Web, restrictions, and other sorts of, government policies that the politicians want to put in place, of course, with the help of a few former executives who I'm sure once sat on the boards of Facebook, Twitter, and some of the other tech giants. It's amazing how this sort of all works. You have big business. They then lobby the lawmakers to craft the deals, and ultimately the laws that get put in place are then beneficiary to the people that they say they're clamping down on. We've only got 150 years of history to back up that sort of thought here this morning. It's amazing how we're able to do that. We provide a thought, and then we give you all of the information and the facts to back up that thought, as compared to what you consume day to day through cable news and elsewhere in the la-la land of the news cycle. We're 22 minutes past the hour.
Tune in on Friday mornings to hear The Construction Connection, a collaborative effort between Joe Catanacci with the Big Talker FM and Cameron Moore, the executive officer of the Wilmington Cape Fear Home Builders Association. You start the conversation, and we bring you the answers as we take a regional, in-depth look at growth-related topics and issues centered around the residential and commercial development and building industry. The Construction Connection, Friday mornings on the Big Talker FM.
Those aren't fireworks. The gang violence here in Wilmington has got to be stopped. As your city councilman, I'll give our law enforcement agencies the direction and support they need to make our streets, ball fields, and schools safe. While doing that, I'll also keep our small businesses open so they can do what they do best, work hard and be profitable. I'm Luke Waddell, I'm running for city council, and I ask for your vote. Paid for by the committee to elect Luke Waddell.
Hi, this is Justin Humphreys from the Humphreys Law Firm on Eastwood Road. The Humphreys Law Firm is located in Lumina Station, Wilmington, North Carolina, practices civil litigation, intellectual property, commercial, and residential real estate. Please give us a call at 910-332-0721 or visit us on our website, which is www.humphreysfirm.law. You can also listen to me every Thursday from 6 to 7 p.m. on the Big Talker 106.7 FM.
Tune in to the WWAY News at 6 p.m.
Thank you for joining us tonight for your News at 6. I'm Hannah Patrick.
I'm Randy Aldridge. We want to get straight to our WWAY team coverage of last night.
For the biggest and most compelling stories that make a difference.
On the scene shortly after the blaze began and has the story now.
Cleveland is one of the fastest growing towns in the country.
First court appearance this morning in Pender County.
WWAY News at 6 p.m. This is the place.
Hey, this is Mark Markley with Recovering Hope. We're going to continue with our diversion into prevention and alternative treatments for the Wuhan flu that you don't hear anywhere else. We'll continue to speak with a variety of professionals and others with personal experience. We'll share the truth, reduce your fears, and bring you hope. So please tune in right here on the Big Talker every Wednesday from 6 to 7 p.m. for Recovering Hope.
Termites, mosquitoes, roaches, spiders. The list of insects and pests goes on and on. So how do you keep them all at bay and out of your home? Call the professionals at Bugno Pest Control. That's Mr. Bugno to you, pal. Bugno Pest Control can not only eliminate insects and pests from in and around your home, they also guarantee it. They are fully licensed and insured, family owned and operated for all your pest control needs. Call Bugno Pest Control, 910-367-2501 or visit BugnoPestControl.com. Rated 5 stars on Angie's List and HomeAdvisor.com.
It's been fun to watch over the last couple of weeks. Those in the entertainment industry, particularly professional athletes, starting to speak up, speak out, break free from, the thoughts that we've been used to hearing from those that toe the company line, whether it be Hollywood or the NFL, the NBA. And I get it. There are many out there who say, hey, you're a performer, you're an entertainer, stick to what you do and, keep your thoughts to yourself. And I'm not necessarily of that line of thinking. I've never been on the just dribble sort of way of looking at people's opinions. As my, Pop Warner football coach once told me at St. Bartholomew's in East Brunswick, New Jersey, in terms of excuses, and I'll use this when it comes to people's opinions. So everyone has, a rear end. Everyone has an opinion. Everyone has an excuse. They're like, rear ends. We'll polish that up for you rather than what he actually said on the football field. We'll let your imagination, take you towards that place here at 27 minutes past 8 o'clock in the morning. So I take the comments for what they are. They're from people mainly from all sorts of backgrounds, and in some cases, coming from some of the lowest socioeconomic places in our country. And then, others from around the world that get to enjoy, the opportunities because of the natural skill set they've been gifted and then develop as they grow. I mean, even as far back to Kaepernick, what was it, 4 years ago or so, or 5 years ago now, who knows? I mean, when that became a big issue because he was kneeling during the national anthem. And, at the time, I remember talking about his decision and saying, hey, I disagree with the approach wholeheartedly and think it's in bad taste not standing for the national anthem and, what that represents when it comes to, the flag and the sacrifices in my mind that, millions of people have given over the course of 240 years, to give us this quality of life that we enjoy. And then, of course, continue say what we want and trash it all we want. That's part of, the gig here in the United States. So you want to make those sorts of statements, you're going to have to, deal with the consequences. And that is what happened to, Colin Kaepernick. And then from there, all these other folks, have spoken up and out about this or that. Of course, last year after George Floyd, we heard from all sorts of people, LeBron James and otherwise. A lot of talk about the police and defunding the police and reforms, and don't see much of that sort of protesting and the rioting and all that sort of stuff. No, all of a sudden, it just disappeared off the face of planet Earth here in America, despite that being the pressing issue of 2020 in many people's minds. A lot of talk about the police. And, here in North Carolina, as we've highlighted, Republicans actually moved forward with legislation to bring reforms and some accountability to the way in which law enforcement agencies go about their business. Don't hear that in the news, of course, either. But when we get back, we're going to highlight a couple of athletes that have popped up on my radar because you don't hear them anywhere else. It's amazing. When they toe the company line, they speak the narrative that the news cycle wants to push. They're all over the place. They're the influencers that we have to listen to. That's, of course, until, a player or an athlete or an owner speaks out and says something that challenges that narrative and the agenda being pushed by particularly those on the left. We'll tell you about two NBA basketball players that have popped up on my radar over the last couple of weeks, and we'll bring you some of the comments they've been making so we can get behind them and support those sorts of viewpoints and get them into the mainstream circles because they're not getting the time of day the way LeBron James does, the way Colin Kaepernick has over the past 5 or 6 years. So we'll bring you some of their commentary when we get back right here on The Big Talker, 106.7 FM.
Hello, I'm Jeff Rivenbark with WWAY News. In Columbus County, one man is dead following a shooting in Whiteville. Police say the shooting happened around 9 o'clock Tuesday night at the Sandy Ridge apartment. When law enforcement arrived, they were told Tony Jashawn Baker had been taken to the hospital in a car where he later died of his injuries. The incident remains under investigation. In Santa Fe, New Mexico today, law enforcement authorities are scheduled to discuss initial findings about a fatal movie set shooting with a prop gun discharged by actor Alec Baldwin that left a cinematographer dead and the film director wounded. The news conference by the Santa Fe County Sheriff and District Attorney this morning may shed new light on a deadly sequence of events that has baffled film set safety experts. Baldwin has described the killing as a tragic accident. Court records say an assistant director grabbed the gun from a cart and indicated the weapon was safe by yelling, "Cold gun." Back in North Carolina, a top Republican lawmaker says legislative action on a final state government budget could happen as soon as next week, with or without formal support from Governor Roy Cooper. House Speaker Tim Moore says he, Senate Leader Phil Berger, and House and Senate Democratic leaders met in person Friday with Cooper to negotiate. Moore said Republicans could act after receiving another Cooper offer. The governor and GOP leaders could agree to a plan that Cooper can sign, or lawmakers could go forward without Cooper's support. That could lead to a veto and an override attempt. And Lelandtown leaders have announced some new businesses, including a 7-Eleven, a cookout, and a Take 5 oil change. The new businesses will be in a development on Highway 17 close to the Chick-fil-A called Leland Corners. Gerry Vidmore, who serves as the town's Economic and Community Development Director, says he hopes to soon announce plans for the development of a well-known home improvement store. For more on these stories, head over to WWAYTV3.com. I'm Jeff Rivenbark. Have a great day.
Happy Wednesday, everybody. I'm WWAY meteorologist Ramel Carpenter with your Storm Track 3 forecast. Another beautiful day on tap across the Cape Fear. Not going to be as breezy as it was on our Tuesday, but still expecting plenty of sunshine and temperatures getting into the upper 60s and the low 70s for afternoon highs. And heading into the overnight hours tonight, we're expecting mostly clear skies. If you're inland of the coast, we'll be dropping down to the upper 40s. Closer to the immediate coastline, we're dropping down to the middle 50s. Get your full forecast on WWAY and WWAYTV3.com.
This news and weather is brought to you by Two Men and a Truck. For your free quote, go to twomenandatruck.com. twomenandatruck.com.
Boom, 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 boom. Now tell me what you gonna do when it ain't nowhere to run. When judgment comes for you. When judgment comes for you. Tell me what you gonna do when it ain't nowhere to hide. When judgment comes for you. 'Cause it's gonna come for you.
All right, moving into the second half of our program here. 3 hours a day, 5 days a week on the Big Talker, 106.7 FM. Our call-in number is 910-299-7535. And this is bringing me back, 7th grade? Bone Thugs and Harmony. The Crossroads. So as I was highlighting, moving into the break, you only hear from certain entertainers and athletes when they toe the company line and speak, the narrative that's being pushed in the mainstream media and elsewhere in politics and, in society, when it comes to the social issues, when it comes to, defunding the police or, any other injustice that, has to be identified, called out, and beaten into the ground until it's no longer an issue because the politicians that are helping fund and stir up all of that mess, get elected, and then it somehow fades away. As we saw last year with the mostly peaceful protests, and now, Democrats in charge in Washington, and somehow those mostly peaceful protests have ceased to exist in the last 10 months. Not really sure what has changed when it comes to, the reforms that many of those people were mostly peacefully protesting about, but I guess that's neither here nor there. It wasn't the purpose from the get-go, using people as pawns to get, those who want the power in place. So we hear from certain athletes, certain entertainers, when they walk that company line and spew the narrative. But then when the former, general manager of the Houston Rockets, Daryl Morey, speaks out against the Chinese Communist Party, he's getting told to just sit in the corner and stay quiet. It's not your role to speak up and speak out about such things. And I have, the understanding that, we want those people to entertain us and not, dictate, our political beliefs, but they have opinions too. So we've got a bunch of one percenters, and many of whom come from less than ideal circumstances coming up. Not all, but many, coming from rough backgrounds and childhoods that are tough, or countries elsewhere that are under certain rule, and then they get here or they come up, become extremely successful, and then spend their time bashing, our country and the things that have been afforded to them through these opportunities. And hey, that's their opinion, and that's fine and I'm fine with it. But what I find the most unsurprising in all of this is the part of the conversation that we rarely hear about when it comes to athletes or other celebrities who speak out in a different sort of tone. Those who don't speak the company line on issues, and how they rarely get the same attention and publicity for the things that they say. Over the last couple of weeks, we played you some commentary from a guy by the name of Jonathan Isaac with the Orlando Magic, NBA player. Well, he laid it out straight as well when it comes to what we see and consume day to day within the news cycle. Let's listen into this patriot.
I believe that we're entering a period of time where the government is setting a precedent that, in light of any emergency, your personal autonomy, your religious freedom, and honestly your freedom as a whole becomes negotiable, and to whoever's in power or whoever agrees with the people in power.
Jonathan, were you nervous, or are you nervous at all to speak out about your personal experience and your personal opinion?
I say yes and no. I obviously know that a lot of the backlash is going to come, and a lot of people are going to be upset. But I believe that what I'm saying is rational, and it's free. And we live in the land of the free and the home of the brave, and we have the opportunity and the platform to say what it is that we feel is right. And I'm taking that right to do so, not just for me, but for all the people who feel like they don't have a voice, and feel like their rights, their liberties are being threatened at this time.
That was Jonathan Isaac of the Orlando Magic not too long ago, speaking with Shannon Bream, I believe it was, on the Fox News channel. We call that man a patriot. I'm going to speak out, understand that there could be backlash, but you know what? I have an opportunity. I have the freedom and the platform to do so. And we're coming into a time where, well, it seems like government wants to get into everything that we do. And unless we're conforming and cozying up to those in power, we feel that we're ostracized and called out and made to look bad. Look at that level-headed thought. Probably the first time you heard that commentary, unless you were tuned in that night on the Fox News channel, because those who don't speak the company line on certain issues rarely get the same attention and publicity for the things they say as compared to others within the same industry or the same venue. Here's one, always fun to comment and see the life and the investments that those in Washington make. I do love, if you're on Twitter, they've got one handle that focuses in on Nancy Pelosi and all the investments that her family has made over the years, and the amounts of money that she's made cashing in many cases. Some would argue because she's privy to information that you and I are not in regards to things that would sway the financial markets, similarly to what we saw with Senator Richard Burr earlier in the pandemic. Sitting on a vital committee, Health and Human Services, I believe it was, understanding some of the backroom information that the insiders get before we do surrounding COVID, and let's just divest and sell some of the stocks related to the hospitality industry just before we move forward with locking down our society and punching that industry in the gut. Still winded, of course, from all of that. Well, how about this one? We all love and know a guy by the name of John Kerry and some of the things he does in efforts to save planet Earth, like flying his private jet all around the world to talk about planet Earth and its destruction because of people like me and you. Well, good to know that he holds a $1 million stake in a Chinese private equity fund with ties, of course, to human rights abuses and labor abuses of the Uyghur people in communist China. Well, in fact, another professional athlete in the NBA is starting to speak out against the abuses and the atrocities that are going on in communist China, not walking the company line, not getting much attention, of course, unless, well, you tune into programs like these. Over the past few days, Boston Celtics center Enes Kanter has gone after China for their treatment of the Tibetan people and their imprisonment of the Uyghur Muslims. Now, Kanter is turning his attention to those who profit off of Chinese labor. In a video that he posted on his social media account on Monday, Kanter went after Nike and founder Phil Knight for their unwillingness to speak out on the atrocities committed by the Chinese Communist government. Quote, "Your company says that you're making a positive impact in our communities." Kanter said, "Well, that's true. Yes, you are, here in the United States. Nike stands with Black Lives Matter. Nike stands with Stop Asian Hate. Nike stands with the LGBTQ community. But when it comes to China, Nike remains silent. You do not address brutality in China. You do not speak about the discrimination against the LGBT community in China. You do not say a word about the oppression of minorities in China because you are scared to speak up." Huh, how about that? Another professional athlete that you've probably never heard of and will never hear comments like these because they do not walk the company line. So it's our job, of course, to bring out some of this commentary because, well, we enjoy listening to everyone's opinion, even as ignorant as some of them may be, particularly from those who live a very fruitful life in our society based on entertaining and athletics. So we'll take that, digest it, try and figure out where they're coming from as far as their point of view goes, but then also look for others who have more of a level-headed approach and way of looking at things like the Boston Celtics center Enes Kanter and the Orlando Magic forward Jonathan Isaac, two guys that we can get behind and support for their decision to speak up and speak out as to what they see going on in our society and around the world. Our call-in number is 910-299-7535 if you'd like to be a part of the show. 15 minutes away or so from our friend Richard Battle. He was down on the U.S.-Mexico border last week. And we'll get a firsthand report from Richard when he joins us from the Lone Star State here in 20 minutes.
Here's 1 minute of tree knowledge in 30 seconds with K.O. Davis.
It's important that you have somebody, a trained professional, to trim your trees. There are these guys out there that just hack trees, and that's the worst thing in the world that you can do. Don't let somebody hat rack your trees. That's a tree term for hat rack. You know how they just cut a tree and it looks like it's just got like a hat rack? These guys just go up and just cut the trees off, and they don't cut it back to the proper spot. Call us, because we care about your trees.
Visit KO'sCoastToCoastTree.com.
Don't let some yahoo hat rack your trees.
Acoustic wave therapy at the Frank Institute is a revolutionary treatment for inflammation, issues of blood flow, and is a solution for the constant suffering of chronic pain. Through the localized transmission of sound waves, stem cells are stimulated to bring about restored blood flow, vascular regeneration, and the disbursement of pain receptors to affected areas. If you've been told that your issues could not be treated without surgery or prescription, give us a call. Non-invasive, non-surgical, and prescription-free. Acoustic wave therapy is only available at the Frank Institute. Call today, 910-679-8534, and ask about acoustic wave therapy.
Some may ask, wasn't the war between the states really a civil war? Webster defines civil war as a war between different sections or factions of the same nation, which is not what occurred from 1861 to 1865, since North and South were two separate nations. Before the conflict began, Southern states legally developed and passed ordinances of secession to leave the United States and later legally affiliated themselves to form a new nation. Southern states had no desire to take over the existing central government by force or any other means. Instead, Southern states first withdrew from the United States, leaving that government entirely intact, and then formed their own confederation, an approach similar to one taken by American patriots 90 years earlier, but with far stronger legal justification than the revolution celebrated by many who condemn Southern secession. This message is brought to you by the North Carolina Division of Sons of Confederate Veterans, who encourage you to learn more about your Southern heritage.
Mike check, Mike check. It's the Iowa Losowski here, Deputy Director of the Consumer Choice Center. You'll hear me every Friday at 9:30 on the Mornings with Joe Catanacci Show, giving you the latest in consumer news, analysis, and political topics to make sure you get your consumer fix. Then hear me and my radio partner in crime, David Clement, on the Consumer Choice Radio Show, Saturdays at 10. Only here on the Big Talker 106.7 FM.
Hear Tom Goolsby on the Joe Catanacci Show.
People with common sense know that the entire theory of socialism is one big lie.
The Big Talker 106.7 FM.
Dana Lash.
We have elected officials that work for us. Elected officials who apparently forgotten where they get the power from, where they get the authority to determine laws that govern all of us. They believe that this authority of consent somehow has made them beyond reproach and has allowed them to treat us in contemptible ways.
The Dana Show.
3 to 6 p.m. only on the Big Talker FM.
Well, my name's John Lee Pettimore. Same as my daddy and his daddy moved.
11 minutes in front of the hour here on the Big Talker FM. As we highlighted in the last segment, I'm really getting enjoyment from these headlines surrounding certain athletes, entertainers who are speaking up and speaking out against the narrative. Many of these professionals who get the publicity have been walking this line of wokeism for the last several years, and we've heard plenty from the wokesters, this activism of sorts, across professional sports. And Colin Kaepernick, who is the guy who really got this ball going and was a sad display of activism during the national anthem. I mean, whatever happened to that guy, by the way? Have we heard of any scholarships for underserved children, any job training for those lacking the skill sets to move forward and maybe change the direction of their family tree? Anything being done on his behalf to help the situation of the people who he claims are systematically placed in a position where they're outside the purview when it comes to education, when it comes to the workforce. I mean, that guy sure did get paid a lot of money to walk that line. And since then, of course, everyone in Hollywood and many in athletics have jumped on the woke train. I think that was mainly because of a diagnosis of the Trump derangement syndrome, as other athletes and entertainers have followed. But as we further get down this rabbit hole, the further we see this level of fear, hysteria because of COVID, as we get further into this narrative from the woke that America was never that great, it's good to see that some are starting to buck that trend and speak out for themselves. I mean, when it comes to quote-unquote comedy or late-night shows, I'm really enjoying the fact that people like Bill Maher are even calling out this unsustainable way of looking at our country and our life. Probably not going to see this anywhere else, but for the publications that we point you to day to day, this coming from the North State Journal, NSJOnline.com. Well, the National School Board Association is now apologizing for a letter it sent to the Biden administration. That letter, of course, drew comparisons between parents protesting school boards as domestic terrorists. That letter then used by the U.S. Attorney General to direct the FBI to intervene in local school board affairs nationwide. Well, apparently last Friday, the National School Board Association issued an apology to its members for the letter it sent to the White House. And according to a group known as Parents Defending Education, well, after that letter surfaced and that announcement was made by the head of the DOJ, well, at least 21 state members of the National School Board Association distanced or withdrew their membership following the letter that was sent in late September. Among them, well, the state of North Carolina, as the North Carolina State Board Association's response said that, in part, they had no role in creating the letter sent to President Biden. We were not privy to any drafts or conversations about the letter prior to its release. And the North Carolina School Board Association does not agree with the tone or the language in the letter, nor the request for federal agencies to intervene in our communities. And the National School Board Association's letter, I mean, why do we have all of these bureaucratic groups of people, again, that oversee our children's education, ground level? Let's get back to basics. But this is where we are, and of course, these are the people that advocate for more, with the results becoming less. How's that all work? During a congressional hearing last week, head of the DOJ admitted that he based his claims of violent threats to school boards and educational staff from that letter sent by the National School Board Association. And it was Congressman Dan Bishop of North Carolina's 9th Congressional District that questioned Merrick Garland whether or not the strategy that he was going to employ with the FBI, if those sorts of things were already taking place. And he could not, answer that question, nor questions about his son-in-law's involvement in a company that produces critical race theory education materials. Yeah, might not have heard that, huh? Oh, yeah. The head of the DOJ employing the FBI and its resources to investigate you because you spoke passionately at a school board meeting. Apparently, the left-wing education company co-founded by Merrick Garland's son-in-law recommends critical race theory material and curriculum, and also recommends that teachers read a book in which the first essay is written by a man by the name of Bill Ayers. Panorama Education claims it has made its way into thousands of schools in the United States, selling race-focused student and teacher surveys and conducting training on systemic racism and oppression, white supremacy, and intersectionality. all under the rubric of social emotional learning. Well, I thought that stuff wasn't getting introduced into the schools, and that when we toss these theories out there, that we're just doing our part to tell the whole story when it comes to the founding and the direction that the United States has moved into over the last 240 years. By the way, a little reminder about Bill Ayers, of course, most famous for his leadership of the communist-inspired Weather Underground, founded in 1969, was on the FBI's most wanted list. Girlfriend of Ayers was killed along with others when a bomb exploded in their Greenwich Village townhouse in 1970. The explosives were intended for an army dance at Fort Dix. Later that night, FBI, the same FBI that is, well, now looking at you for speaking out and up at a local school board meeting, well, they call the Weather Underground a domestic terrorist group that claimed responsibility for dozens of bombings, including bombing of the Senate side of the U.S. Capitol building in 1971 that caused hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of damage. Also carrying out bombings of the Pentagon in 1972 and the State Department in 1975, among many others. Yet these are the people that are now, well, writing essays that are being recommended and pushed on our educators who spend 8 hours a day, 5 days a week, 7 months out of the year with your children. As we move up into the top of the hour, again, just trying to lay everything out there for you with a little bit of information and fact to support some of the things that we call attention to day to day. I know it's a difficult concept for some who are in the roles of news anchor or member of the White House press pool. I know it's very difficult for those folks to try and give you the entire story. But that's why we're here, folks, at the Big Talker 106.7 FM, over at BigTalkerFM.com, our Facebook page, our YouTube channel. So many different ways in which we can engage with you day to day, and we're very thankful for these platforms. As we've highlighted throughout the show, looking forward to this conversation coming up after the top of the hour news break with our friend Richard Battle. RichardBattle.com is his website if you'd like to know more about what he does and why he does it. Well, Richard, in fact, was down at the southern border last week, had an opportunity to meet with Border Patrol agents and, well, get a look at the situation on the ground. I believe our commander-in-chief once drove by the U.S.-Mexico border during a campaign stop in El Paso, so we want to fact check. All right, he once drove by the U.S.-Mexico border. The year was, I think, 2008 when he was campaigning alongside the Messiah. So we'll get a firsthand look as to, well, what the situation is at the southern border and a firsthand report in conversations with U.S. Customs and Border Protection agents. Of course, that organization detaining a record high 1.7 million illegal immigrants over the previous 12 months, with a migrant caravan of about 2,000 people making its way now through Mexico, with the final destination, of course, being the United States of America. But again, here we have to provide the flow chart for you. Immigration, 2 subcategories: illegal immigration, legal immigration. Legal immigration, no one wants to touch the broken system and try to make it more affordable and effective. So the illegal immigrants have a way to get here in a way that wouldn't, of course, create humanitarian issues and safety issues at our southern border, and also, of course, would not destroy any sort of financial assets they have because of the cost it takes to get into the country legally. We'll talk with Richard Battle from the Lone Star State when we get back for our third and final hour of the show. We'll kick it off right after this.
keeping Charlotte informed. The Big Talker 106.7 FM WFBT, Carolina Beach.
Although they say they are closing in on a deal, congressional Democrats have yet to agree on a compromise social spending plan. Last word, the proposal carried a $1.75 trillion price tag. Several Democrat leaders met yesterday with President Biden at the White House, part of the ongoing negotiations. And Senate Republican leader Mitch McConnell says the Democrats only fooling themselves.
They're acting like this was the New Deal. Roosevelt had massive majorities. Or it's the Great Society. LBJ had massive majorities.
McConnell saying there are no such majorities this time around, adding the American people are not asking for any of this. They're headed down the home stretch. The Virginia gubernatorial candidates, Republican Glenn Youngkin, Democrat Terry McAuliffe, in a dead heat, according to the polls. McAuliffe, who previously said that an unpopular President Biden was a drag on his campaign, held a rally with Mr. Biden yesterday in the Democrat stronghold of Northern Virginia. Republican Youngkin suggesting that may actually help him. Parts of the Northeast are reeling from that nor'easter that brought fierce winds and flooding rains to the region. Things expected to calm down today. The National Weather Service's David Roth says New York and New Jersey were swamped, while Massachusetts got a bit of a break.
The rain across southeast Massachusetts, we had originally been anticipating more rain than has fallen, but it looks like they picked up about an inch or two.
More than 250,000 utility customers left without power in the aftermath of the storm. We may learn today whether criminal charges will be filed in connection with the fatal movie set shooting in New Mexico. The local sheriff and DA will hold a news conference. Actor Alec Baldwin fired a prop gun. The movie's cinematographer was killed. A director was wounded. Watching Wall Street, Dow futures are up 39 points. NASDAQ futures ahead 21. S&P futures 4 points higher. More on these stories at townhall.com.
The following is not an actor, but a real-life story from Trinity Debt Management.
I was finishing undergrad and got credit cards because I couldn't work full-time. So that started the credit card journey for me.
If you're in debt and you need help, call Trinity at 1-800-990-6976.
And then when I got married, we combined our credit card debt and it became impossible to pay off on our own. At that point, I was like, I don't know where to turn. And then I found Trinity.
Trinity will consolidate your accounts into one easy-to-manage monthly payment, reduce your interest, and possibly improve your credit score. You'll save thousands.
I initially was scared to call, and immediately I felt relief. I mean, in a matter of 3 years, we've already paid down $20,000 in credit card debt, which is huge.
Call Trinity at 1-800-990-6976. That's 1-800-990-6976.
A new censorship law gives authorities in Hong Kong more power to ban films thought to run afoul of China's national security interests. Those showing such movies could get 3 years in prison, be hit with a hefty fine.
The bill was passed by Hong Kong's opposition-free legislature by a simple show of hands. The law will now require censors to determine whether a film contains elements deemed contrary to the strict national security law imposed last year by Beijing. Critics say the legal change is a further attack on freedom of expression that will stifle Hong Kong's once vibrant film industry. Lawmakers said that the bill was in full compliance with human rights laws.
That's a BBC's Martin Yip in Hong Kong. U.S. regulators expelling a unit of China Telecom Limited. It's one of the country's 3 major state-owned carriers from the American market as a national security threat. Townhall.com. The number of households receiving emergency rental assistance has increased in recent months.
And there has been no major increase in people being turned out of their homes, despite the expiration of the federal eviction moratorium. Numbers released by the Treasury Department, which oversees the rental assistance program, show the number of households receiving the benefits jumped 10% in September, up to 510,000 households compared with 459,000 in August. The department says the number of evictions remains below historical averages. John Scott reporting.
The third quarter was not kind to the bottom line of aircraft manufacturer Boeing. The Chicago-based company lost $109 million July through September. The company has been struggling with production problems that have blocked deliveries of the 787, a large plane popular on international airline routes. Let's get on Wall Street. Dow futures up 30 points. More on these stories at townhall.com.
The champ is here! The champ is here! The champ is here! The champ is here!
Let me tell you something you already know. The world ain't all sunshine and rainbows. It's a very mean and nasty place, and I don't care how tough you are, it will beat you to your knees and keep you there permanently if you let it. You, me, or nobody is gonna hit as hard as life. But it ain't about how hard you hit. It's about how hard you can get hit and keep moving forward. How much you can take and keep moving forward. That's how winning is done.
When the moon hits your eye like a big pizza pie, that's amore. When the world seems to shine like you've had too much wine, that's amore.
Third and final hour of our show upon us here in the middle of the broadcast week. You're tuned in to the Big Talker, 106.7 FM. Great to be with you for this final 60-minute session as we cruise through some of the news of the day, issues facing our region, state, and country, news from around the world coming your way in the most entertaining and informative way possible, in which the way we operate day to day from 7 until 10 a.m. Our friend Richard Battle joins us weekly on Wednesdays inside this third and final hour of our show. And steering a little off course this week, Richard has been on this note of positivity when talking about leadership and bringing a glass half full sort of mindset to the conversation and what we do day to day to try and better ourselves and do what needs to be done from a personal, professional standpoint to keep moving forward. As you hear at the top of our hour in the intro to our program every day, keep moving forward. That's how winning is done. Despite all the noise, outside that, does have an impact on your life one way or the other, you got to get back up and keep moving forward. Well, this week, unfortunately, Richard wants to tell his story of a recent trip down to our southern border. As a resident of Lone Star State, recently had the opportunity to meet with a Border Patrol agent and, got a firsthand look at the situation between U.S. and Mexico. And we've highlighted, of course, today and over the last, 10 months. On day one, when Joe Biden became president of the United States, one of his first executive orders was to stop efforts to secure our border. And here we are 10 months later, upwards of 2 million people detained at our southern border, countless others, of course, that have disappeared already into the shadows. We've got Border Patrol agents that are being depicted as, slave owners by some in Washington, D.C., because they ride horses with reins on them. Unbelievable distortion of course, reality on the ground in that region of our country. Richard, it's a pleasure. Thanks for holding, and good morning, sir.
Joe, good morning. Thank you for having me. And yes, I am still positive despite the challenges that we experience on the border, because we all have an opportunity to add impact to this situation wherever we're at.
And now, Richard, you kind of highlighted this on previous occasions in this broad conversation surrounding illegal immigration, in that years ago it was a conversation that really was regionalized, meaning that if you're in Texas, if you're along the Arizona, California southern border, you knew kind of the situation on the ground. That has changed as it's become a very hot topic, in large part because one candidate, Donald Trump, brought it into the conversation and showcased the fact that we need to have secure borders and we need to get a handle on this situation, because it's causing issues not only in your neck of the woods but all over the nation.
Yeah, and let me put a couple of perspective pieces on there. So I've been along the border for years, many cities, gone across the border into Mexico, eaten a casual dinner, shopped, come back. I would never do that now The DPS officer that I worked with last week, who's Hispanic, has not been across the border into Mexico in years. So that's how different it is. And the border from Texas to Mexico is 1,254 miles long. And putting that into perspective, that's the same distance as going from downtown San Antonio to O'Hare Airport in Chicago. So that's the length the border just in Texas has to defend against this illegal onslaught that we have. And so last week I was down visiting again with the public information officer from the Texas Department of Public Safety and got a really good look. And what I saw, as well as what I didn't see, was really enlightening. And I was at the lower Rio Grande from McAllen, Texas, up through Mission and to La Jolla, which is just one segment, but it's been one that's controlled by the cartels and been under I'd call it a vicious attack with illegal immigration.
And so as this situation seems to continue to spiral out of control, we know that Governor Abbott and he's directed state resources there, and I mean, this is just unsustainable. One is pressing the resources of your state and those within the federal government that don't seem to be getting much assistance or attention from those in Washington, D.C. I mean, what's the morale like for those that have to deal with this sort of stuff day to day, with the understanding that they don't have the support from those up in our nation's capital?
Well, that's a really good question. Border Patrol morale is very low because they're federal agents. Now, Governor Abbott has said he would hire any of those agents who want to come work for the state of Texas. The state of Texas agents, their morale is high because they've been given all the resources they've asked for to control the border the best they can. And so the things I saw that were kind of interesting were, to me, the U.S. government is promoting, enabling, and assisting illegal immigration right now, because the messaging that's come out since January, when people come across in the lower Rio Grande Valley, they do not come unless the cartel okays it. And so it's very organized on the cartel side. And what happened the day I was there, I didn't see any illegal immigrants at that spot, but we saw several buses. And the comment from the DPS officer was, there must be a group getting ready to cross. And the U.S. agents, because of the bad publicity in Del Rio, their number one priority is to get people out of sight as fast as possible. So they had what they call a processing station under the Mission International Bridge, where they directed people with signs to that station. I call it a welcoming station. They would give them the slightest looks to see who they were and then throw them on buses to take them into other locations. And us knowing that people were coming in that kind of numbers indicated to me some, I hate to use the word collaboration possibly, with our government trying to get those people processed. And I use the word process loosely. So that was one of the things that was most enlightening. When you look at Del Rio, Texas, which is further north, and when we saw the thousands of people under the bridge there a few weeks ago, the big difference is the Del Rio section, the cartel is not controlling with an iron fist like they are the lower Rio Grande Valley. And so people come and go individually and in whatever groups they want to. In the lower Rio Grande Valley, what they're doing is the cartel is massing large groups of people, sending them across, forcing agents to have to deal with them. And when they do that, then they're doing their trafficking of drugs, sex trafficking, weapons, other different things to try to go through once that distraction of that large group is there.
So, I mean, and we know, how quickly these criminal organizations are able to adapt and adjust, and probably do have some insider knowledge from our law enforcement agencies as to what they're going to do, because they always seem to be a few steps ahead of where we're at, and maybe, as you mentioned, maybe complicit members of our government in allowing that to happen. I mean, these distractionary tactics are predictable, yet we just continue to allow it to happen, and there's no end to it, it seems, right, Richard? I mean, there's no will up in Washington to get a handle on this situation, so it's only going to, continue to get worse, right?
Well, and the news is worse than that from my standpoint, from the action that Texas is trying to control the border. Operation Lone Star, we've committed $1.8 billion for border security, building wall, things of this nature. And Washington has sued Texas, who's trying to enforce federal law because Washington won't enforce it. Joe Biden has issued executive orders to try to stop Texas from enforcing federal law. There are sections of border fence down there laying on the ground. I'll use the term rotting, but that wall is very substantial when you stand next to that 30-foot wall. But there's resources there that the government has just let go. Texas would buy that. Texas would finish the wall. They're building wall on state property. The federal government will not let Texas take those resources and build wall on federal property. So they are getting in the way and doing everything they can to inhibit the efforts from Texas to try to control the border.
And Richard, we kind of highlighted as we were promoting, this segment a little earlier that oftentimes, when we talk about immigration and legal immigration versus illegal immigration, and we make mention of things like border security, limiting resources to people who are in charge of securing our border between U.S. and Mexico, then it becomes this narrative that we're against immigration or we're some sort of bigoted, racist people because of this sort of thought that we need certain rules, regulations, security in place. And on top of that, in addition to that, an immigration system that works for the masses of people that want to come to our country looking for better opportunity. It's amazing how that all gets twisted and turned around and spit out the way it is, within the news cycle almost on a daily basis.
Yes, and first thing is Congress has charge of immigration policy. They can change it anytime they want to. Second, I was told that this year authorities have intercepted people from 150 countries. So this is not a racial issue from Hispanic, Mexico, Northern Triangle, South America. People are coming from all over the world. So that's a huge issue. I go out of my way to talk to naturalized citizens of every race, and I always like to ask them what they think of illegal immigration. And to a person, they always say that people ought to come here legally. And that's the thing. It's a legality issue. It's a health issue. It's a national security issue. It's not a racial issue or an anti-person issue.
Yet it's made, it's framed, the conversation is framed in that sort of light. The latter, which you were just describing, not, of course, that, for about 35, 40 years now, there's been a broken legal immigration system that, one, is a cost burden to those who are seeking opportunity here in the United States, and then, two, a lot of different hurdles and hoops you have to jump over and leap through in order to get to that spot, and that oftentimes takes years and years and years and a ton of money to do it, as compared to what we see now. You get the process, you get processed, as you said, loosely using that term. You go maybe to a hearing, doubtful, and then you're given a bus ticket or an airline pass to go pretty much to a city of your choice, and then ultimately you disappear into the shadows. And as we mentioned, more of a nationalized sort of story right now, because that continues to weigh on the system that many people need for assistance, and systems that you and I consume day to day, like our healthcare system or like our transportation system, and the list goes on and on and on.
Yeah, and I want to talk about the airplane flight in a minute, but Lieutenant Olivares, who escorted and hosted me, is Hispanic. Most of the Texas Department of Public Safety officers and Border Patrol agents on the border are Hispanic. And so I asked him point blank how he and others felt when people tried to make this a racial issue. And it was a very negative thing that they felt, because to them, they know it's not a racial issue. And if I'm not Hispanic, and I don't think it's a racial issue, but when Hispanic people are hearing this, it has a great effect on them. And it was interesting, in my connecting flight from Houston to McAllen was half full when I went down there. I got through and I was trying to change flights coming back. Every flight out of McAllen, Texas was oversold. And I was told as I left that they were flying people out of the airport. And so when I went, I didn't pay attention at first because I was trying to get on a plane, but then all of a sudden I noticed. And the people in the airport, the illegals who were being transported to who knows where, they walk around with a folder. It says they don't speak English. It's got their ticket in it and their documentation. But what was interesting was every male had on the exact same brand new pair of tennis shoes. Every male had on the exact same brand new pair of pants. They had a variety of different shirts. A few of the ladies had ankle monitors, but there were many single males and then some family units as well. And the flight I was on was at least 50% full of illegal aliens flying to Houston and then connecting to who knows where.
And that's just just from one day, you traveling back and forth, and this is ongoing day after day, week after week, month after month, Richard, for now 11 months since the Biden administration has taken over. Yet, all the tears that were shed of the drama that was brought to the southern border from some of our Washington elitists last year, they're not seen or heard at this point. It's amazing how quickly it's a crisis, and then it disappears once the people that want the power back have the power, and then these issues just fade away into the sunset.
Yes, and so the question in the media, none of the media, even the conservative media, are not asking enough questions or investigating this well enough. Because the question is, who's paying for those airplane flights? Is it the U.S. government? Did they go through TSA security? Is it what they call the NGOs, the non-governmental organizations, which includes the Catholic Church? And if the Catholic Church and NGOs are paying for these people, how is their funding coming? Does their funding come from the U.S. government? Does some of it come from the cartels themselves? There's so many questions down there. And I asked him about violence on the Texas side of the border because I've seen and heard some of it. And he said, well, in the lower Rio Grande Valley, there wasn't much. And I thought about it, and I said, well, yeah, the cartels don't want that because it'd be bad for business. They would rather be under the radar making their $15 million a day than have people come down there and put the telescope on them or microscope on them and stop their activities. He did tell me there'd been 2 assassinations in Laredo where hitmen had come across the border, changed cars, and gone and assassinated a man and a woman at 2 different times. And basically that tells you that those folks were not doing what the cartel wanted them to do in trafficking people.
Richard Battle with us here this morning, Navigating Life's Journey, Common Sense in Uncommon Times, one of his books that we often refer to during our weekly conversations. Richard, real quick, also another new book out. How can people pick it up or learn more about what you do and why you do it?
Well, thank you. And the latest book is Life's Daily Treasure, 366 doses of hope, optimism, personal growth, and encouragement. And it's on Amazon and other booksellers, but none of them have discounted it yet. So if they want it at a really good price, they can go to richardbattle.com. And, of course, it's hardback, gift edition, paperback, and Kindle as well.
Well, with that said, how do you remain hopeful and, with a glass half full sort of mindset when you see what you saw just recently, at our southern border?
Well, I think 2 big things. One is I have a faith in a creator who has a bigger plan for a longer period of time than we're looking at now. And then second, I'm encouraged when I see people standing up and exercising their citizenship at school board meetings, city council meetings, things that you talk about. And more people do it. And as we've talked about all year, none of us can do everything. But if each of us finds the one thing we're interested in and helps in that one area, then we will all contribute to reclaiming our freedom and liberty. And Teddy Roosevelt, whose birthday was today, said, do what you can, where you can, with what you got.
richardbattle.com if you'd like to know more about what our friend Richard does and why he does it. Again, richardbattle.com. And Richard, thanks so much for the report. Obviously, you're not going to get anything like that through the mainstream news cycle. As you mentioned, both conservative-leaning news, left-leaning news, they're basically ignoring this story and have been, frankly, complicit in all of this over the last 11 months because they've failed to bring some openness and transparency to the conversation and have failed to hold our politicians' feet to the fire on a situation that impacts all of us.
That's true, and there's a lot more to the story, and I wish the media would find out, and they have the opportunity to do so.
Richard, thanks so much for the report here this morning.
Thank you, Joe. God bless America.
All right, we're 25 minutes past the hour here on the Big Talker FM. If you'd like to call in, our phone number, 910-299-7535.
I don't know why I let that mean woman make me a fool. She took all my money, wrecked my new car. Now she's with one of my good time buddies. They're drinking in some crosstown bar. Sometimes I feel, sometimes I feel
Hey, this is Matt Ham, co-founder of Uprint and the co-host of Wake Up Our Faith, every Saturday and Sunday right here on Wilmington's Big Talker. We invite you to join with our nonprofit movement by participating in the Portable Faith Community. This is a $10 a month tax-deductible contribution, and you get access to daily encouragement, resources, as well as our prayer community. You can go to wakeupmyfaith.com to get subscribed and learn more. That's wakeupmyfaith.com.
Hi, this is Justin Humphreys from the Humphreys Law Firm on Eastwood Road. The Humphreys Law Firm is located in Lumina Station, Wilmington, North Carolina, practices civil litigation, intellectual property, commercial, and residential real estate. Please give us a call at 910-332-0721 or visit us on our website, which is www.humphreysfirm.law. You can also listen to me every Thursday from 6 to 7 p.m. on the Big Talker 106.7 FM.
Hey everyone, Ben Hawkins here with Cross Country Mortgage. Rates are still at historic lows, and there has never been a better time to purchase your dream home or refinance your existing. With over 300 loan products including conventional, FHA, VA, USDA, renovation, and jumbo, we are certain we have the right loan product for you and your family. Call me today to be pre-qualified to make the offer on your next dream home. 910-352-3373 or visit my website at lendwithben.com.
Dana Lash.
We have elected officials that work for us. Elected officials who apparently forgotten where they get the power from where they get the authority to determine laws that govern all of us. They believe that this authority of consent somehow has made them beyond reproach and has allowed them to treat us in contemptible ways.
The Dana Show.
3 to 6 p.m. only on the Big Talker FM.
I'm State Farm Agent Rob Renz, and I want to help you get to a better state. We are one of the fastest growing and most reviewed insurance agencies in Wilmington. That's because our customers love the personalized attention that we give to you. Let us help you get to a better state by visiting our website at ilminsurance.com. That's ilminsurance.com. Like a good neighbor, State Farm is there.
I'm K.O. Davis from K.O.'s Coast to Coast Tree, and I want to be your tree man.
When your trees need cut, 2 letters to know. One is a K, the other is an O. K.O.
Tree man. Proper trimming is the most important thing that you can do, so don't just hire anybody to do it. You need someone that knows what they're doing.
K.O.
Call the professionals at K.O.'s Coast to Coast Tree and visit KOTrees.com.
Final half hour of the show coming up as we head to a news break. Back in the old days, was this Michael Savage used to come in to a little Judas Priest. Savage. That guy get off his rocker, but a very entertaining voice that, well, is no longer. on the radio. I think he has a podcast these days, but some of the corporate suits all started to axe him one by one across the country. Canceled. Every time this song pops up, I think of him and the intro to his show. All right, if you'd like to contribute to the program in the final half hour, you know the number. It's 910-299-7535. We'd love to hear from you after the news break.
Hello, I'm Jeff Rivenbark with WWAY News. In Columbus County, one man is dead following a shooting in Whiteville. Police say the shooting happened around 9 o'clock Tuesday night at the Sandy Ridge Apartments. When law enforcement arrived, they were told Tony Jashawn Baker had been taken to the hospital in a car where he later died of his injuries. The incident remains under investigation. In Santa Fe, New Mexico today, law enforcement authorities are scheduled to discuss initial findings about a fatal movie set shooting with a prop gun discharged by actor Alec Baldwin that left a cinematographer dead and the film director wounded. The news conference by the Santa Fe County Sheriff and District Attorney this morning may shed new light on a deadly sequence of events that has baffled film set safety experts. Baldwin has described the killing as a tragic accident. Court records say an assistant director grabbed the gun from a cart and indicated the weapon was safe by yelling, "Cold gun." Back in North Carolina, a top Republican lawmaker says legislative action on a final state government budget could happen as soon as next week, with or without formal support from Governor Roy Cooper. House Speaker Tim Moore says he, Senate Leader Phil Berger, and House and Senate Democratic leaders met in person Friday with Cooper to negotiate. Moore said Republicans could act after receiving another Cooper offer. The governor and GOP leaders could agree to a plan that Cooper can sign, or lawmakers could go forward without Cooper's support. That could lead to a veto and an override attempt. And Lelandtown leaders have announced some new businesses, including a 7-Eleven, a Cookout, and a Take 5 oil change. The new businesses will be in a development on Highway 17 close to the Chick-fil-A called Leland Corners. Gerry Vidmore, who serves as the town's Economic and Community Development Director, says he hopes to soon announce plans for the development of a well-known home improvement store. For more on these stories, head over to WWAYTV3.com. I'm Jeff Rivenbark. Have a great day.
Happy Wednesday, everybody. I'm WWAY meteorologist Ramel Carpenter with the Storm Track 3 forecast. Another beautiful day on tap across the Cape Fear. Not going to be as breezy as it was on our Tuesday, but still expecting plenty of sunshine and temperatures getting into the upper 60s and the low 70s for afternoon highs. And heading into the overnight hours tonight, we're expecting mostly clear skies. If you're inland of the coast, we'll be dropping down to the upper 40s. Closer to the immediate coastline, we're dropping down to the middle 50s. Get your full forecast on WWAY and WWAYTV3.com.
This news and weather is brought to you by Two Men and a Truck. For your free quote, go to twomenandatruck.com. twomenandatruck.com.
I am State Farm Agent Rob Renz, and I want to help you get to a better place. Visit us online at ilminsurance.com. That's ilminsurance.com. Like a good neighbor, State Farm is there.
All right, as we move into the final 25 minutes of the program here this morning, we thank Richard Battle again for that firsthand report as to what he witnessed at our southern border just last week. Again, on his way back from I just got a text from the pharmacy for my COVID test coming up in an hour. Yeah, so we're still, because of COVID policies on our college campuses and elsewhere, if I'm going to be in close contact, unvaccinated with players and coaches, though you feel completely fine, you got to go get a swab up your nose 72 hours before game time so you can carry out your duties. I guess I am thankful that they're not moving forward with any sort of mandates, which would then put me in a little bit of a predicament, one that many folks find themselves in right now. And we know that in certain areas of the country, all these mandates are in place. In New York City, for instance, I wouldn't be able to go to an event or a bar or a restaurant without my Vax Pass. Well, how are those businesses faring in these cities? Predictably, not well. This comes after, of course, an entire year of being shut down, and for those that survived, now dealing with another obstacle that's been in their way on top of the labor shortage and the unwillingness to get back on the job. Well, how about on the poop coast of city of San Francisco? Yes, go look up the poop map. Always a fun thing to do if you've got a few extra minutes on your hands. You go look at the latest dropping of a human in the middle of a street in San Francisco. But nonetheless, restaurants in San Francisco, predictably, somehow, some way, no one figured this out prior to putting these mandates in place. San Francisco restaurants are dealing with a drop in business and conflicts with diners following the city's proof of vaccination mandate for most indoor activities. Among the 151 restaurants that responded, 60% reported a decrease in business since the mandate went into effect on August 20th. Meanwhile, 52% reported that at least one employee had at least one conflict with a customer when attempting to verify vaccination status. We all heard the story about the popular West Coast fast food chain In-N-Out Burger in San Francisco. They've got one within the city limits, and they said, listen, we're not the vaccination daddy. We're not going to adhere to the mandate, and, well, they were shut down. How about here on the East Coast? The Big Apple. Used to love going to the Big Apple. I don't know the next time or if ever I'll go back. I hate to say that as someone who grew up 40 minutes outside of the city, as many of us call it, the city, the stadium, Yankee Stadium. You knew what people were referring to when you say the city and the stadium. New York City restaurateurs are complaining that their businesses and their business has been slashed severely by the vaccine mandate, which requires people 12 and older to show vaccination proof for indoor dining, indoor fitness, and indoor entertainment. New York City restaurateurs say their business has been down 50 to 60% over the last month due to vaccine mandates. You weather the storm, you somehow, some way, are hopeful that you can move forward. The politicians tell you that, as we roll these sorts of things out, we would never, place these sorts of restrictions on consumers and your businesses, and here we are. 910-299-7535. Caller, thanks for holding, and good morning.
Sure. Good morning, Joe. Talking about the vaccine, that just reminded me, I don't know, you may have said something about it this morning and I missed it, but let's remind everybody of the esteemed Dr. Fauci's involvement in the experiments with the puppies, the beagle puppies in Tunisia, I believe it is, where they're kept alive, their vocal cords are cut so they don't make noise, but I would think they would at least put them to sleep a little bit so they wouldn't feel it, but they want them to feel it, and they're sandflies. They put their head in a box, and sandflies eat them alive. And that is one of the other big projects that, Dr. Fauci has okayed. Between that and COVID, you would think that some of these left-leaning activists that are all about him would rise up and just that to me that is the sickest thing. And what for? What is the experiment supposed to prove? It's just disgusting.
What we find here, isn't it fascinating that a lot of these movements, particularly that come out of the left, when it comes in conflict with another one of their groups of people, or issues, they somehow, some way, remain very silent when it comes to women's issues, when it comes to issues surrounding, as you mentioned, the beloved Dr. Fauci. It's amazing how quickly those people are silenced once a conflict comes up, as far as the way things go.
Down here in Brunswick County, I know Bald Head Island and Oak Island, we're so dog friendly, and I'm gonna tell you right now, I can't believe people need to talk about that because that is just evil. There's no other word for it. Thanks, Joe.
And thank you for the call. And we called it, what was it, Monday here, like the demise of Fauci may be on the horizon because of the 44 beagle puppies out in Tunisia. And you're reading reports of that, and it's just not really sure what the scientific method is or reasoning behind it, but we'll never get an explanation. We'll just be told to sit in the corner, keep the muzzle on, and stay safe. As 2 million people come pouring across our border, largely unvetted, as we heard from Richard Battle just a few minutes ago. But you sit in the corner and be a good little boy. 910-299-7535. Caller, you're with us. Good morning.
Good morning, Joe.
How are you doing today?
Sir, how's the parking gig working out for you?
Oh, doing great, and thank you so much for that.
Outstanding. That's all we can do. I'm thinking about listening to all the talk about the mandates and all. It's vaccine. There's no alternative. Nobody has really come up with something else you could take, like an antiviral drug. There's all kinds of antiviral drugs starting to come out now, but it seemed like an uphill battle for these companies to try to bring something forward. It's the vaccine or nothing, and that doesn't make sense in the history of all medicine, especially in this country. There's always been an alternative. And now it's vaccine, and now they're looking at 5-year-old kids and all, which anybody that lets their 5-year-old kid get a vaccine, they really need to talk to somebody first because that's kind of nutty.
Yeah, okay, and how far can they go? We'll never implement these sorts of mandates and restrictions, and that was promises made during the campaign of 2020, and look where we are here today. Boy, things change once you become the president of the United States. And even when you are able to prove, the proper documentation or, a credible, well thought out, reasoning behind not getting vaccinated or not having to wear a mask, those in charge are still denying your right to do what you feel is best for yourself and your family. In fact, I'm looking at a story right now from NSJOnline.com. Parents across North Carolina's largest public school district, Wake County, are reporting their attempts to obtain medical mask exemptions for their children are being denied by administrators within the school system, despite having the appropriate medical documentation. Parents reporting. Go ahead.
Yeah, it's just gotten crazy. Even if people that have had the virus, and then now they're finding that a couple studies that the antibodies are a lot stronger than they believed. It doesn't matter. You have to get the vaccine. It doesn't matter. Have to get the vaccine. It's just crazy.
And on top of that, I've never known with at least some sort of treatments or products that you can take to alleviate symptoms or help recover. I've never heard of doctors who of course issue prescriptions for everything and anything when you go to them. How there are not more popular ways to treat this other than, as you said, just the vaccine. This is the only illness that I've ever heard of in the history of the science, because that's what we're following, right? Where there hasn't been a prescription written immediately to address an issue that you may be having because of contracting COVID.
My VA doctor, my VA nurse practitioner, and an Army buddy of mine from Special Forces, who's now a doctor, who was SF medic, who's now a doctor in New Hampshire. Every one of them I asked, should I get the vaccine? Every one of them said, I'm not getting it. So right there, what am I supposed to believe? I haven't gotten a vaccine. I have no problem wearing a mask, and I'm not. I don't hang out in crowds and go to fundraisers and have people cough in my face like Biden. But it's I'm stepping back. There's got to be something better rather than take this shot that a lot of people are afraid of.
Yeah, and many have differing reasons. We've heard from professional athletes who are now being ostracized and not allowed to perform because of their decisions. Well thought out responses. Thankfully, again, and thank you for the call. For the places where I am employed, they're not requiring any sort of mandates, even within the university system here in Wilmington and also down at Coastal. They said, okay, well, that's your decision. That's fine, but we need to go through these protocols and check the boxes so you can come here and do what you need to do. So I'm thankful in that end, not really understanding of all that when it comes to the end of the day, but what do I know? Parents reporting in Wake County that they have submitted the necessary medical doctor's examination report of their children. The doctor has made himself available for questions when it comes to mask exemptions within Wake County, providing the proper material as required by the administrative state within the public education system, yet their exemption requests are still being denied. A licensed medical provider. Another parent recorded her mask exemption request conversation with the principal of Powell Elementary School, which is a magnet school in Raleigh. The recording of the call, reported by Carolina Journal, shows the principal dismissing pediatrician recommendations and demanding more medical data on the child. You get a form, medical exemption request, you cross off everything on the list, and it's still not good enough. 13 minutes in front of the hour here on the Big Talker FM. We're going to wrap up our program, Wednesday edition of the show, after this timeout.
I step off the train, I'm walking down your street again and past your door, but you don't live there anymore. It's years since you've been there, and now you disappeared somewhere. I got a space, you found some better place, and I miss you.
Hey, this is Mark Markley with Recovering Hope. We're going to continue with our diversion into prevention and alternative treatments for the Wuhan flu that you don't hear anywhere else. We'll continue to speak with a variety of professionals and others with personal experience. We'll share the truth, reduce your fears, and bring you hope. So please tune in right here on the Big Talker every Wednesday from 6 to 7 p.m. for Recovering Hope.
As Wilmington's leader in restorative and regenerative medicine, the Frank Institute specializes in health optimization. Simply put, we use in-depth evaluations and lab testing to determine the best treatments for each patient. So whether you're suffering from an unseen hormonal imbalance or a simple vitamin deficiency, the Frank Institute is ready to get you back to better living. Call us at 910-679-8534 or fill out our symptom survey online at frankinstitute.com. Because at the Frank Institute, you live, we help.
The Wilmington Cape Fear Home Builders Association serves as the advocate for the building industry, advancing professionalism and promoting community involvement. We are a positive force for responsible growth while protecting property rights and the privilege of home ownership. 3 out of every 5 jobs is touched in some manner by construction in our region. Growth generates jobs, maintains our property values, and builds and updates our infrastructure. Join us Friday mornings for the Construction Connection with the Wilmington Cape Fear Home Builders Association and the Big Talker FM.
In this corner, bugs. Every creepy, crawly pest that lurks in your home. And in this corner, Bug-No Pest and Termite Control. That's Mr. Bug-No to you, pal. If you have unwanted pests, let Bug-No Pest and Termite Control take the fight to them. Bug-No Pest and Termite Control is a family-owned and operated business, fully licensed and insured, and can handle all of your residential and commercial pest and termite control needs. Rated 5 stars on Angie's List and HomeAdvisor.com. Call 910-367-2501 to give bugs a knockout.
Those aren't fireworks. The gang violence here in Wilmington has got to be stopped. As your city councilman, I'll give our law enforcement agencies the direction and support they need to make our streets, ball fields, and schools safe. While doing that, I'll also keep our small businesses open so they can do what they do best: work hard and be profitable. I'm Luke Waddell, I'm running for city council, and I ask for your vote. Paid for by the committee to elect Luke Waddell.
With a customer referral rating of 96%, Two Men in a Truck Wilmington has proven time and time again they are the top local choice when it comes to all of your moving needs. Offering a wide range of professional moving services, including local and long-distance moving, business relocations, both full or partial packing services and storage, Two Men in a Truck is dedicated to exceed customer expectations and reliability, quality of service, and care. To start your quote, log on to twomenandatruck.com or call 910-210-0224.
I don't feel sorry for people who are living in million-dollar houses and are complaining about people like me trying to take care of everyone.
Keep government open. We have to do those imminently, more imminently even, to address the full Obama agenda of building back better. Joe, pay attention.
I get up in the morning, look at Joe and say, where the hell are we? We can work together with Russia. For example,
we're building back better together. And I'm building back greener. I'm building back fairer.
All right, as we wrap up our show here on this Wednesday, it's the 27th of October. Coming off a little birthday celebration last night. And we had some great eggplant parm. Probably my most favorite meal, other than Mom's homemade chicken cutlets. You got to beat those cutlets. You got to slice them real thin, and then you get the breading. Fry them up a little bit, toss them in the oven, low temp. Some mashed potatoes and corn. That was the weekly meal, my favorite. Growing up, and now it's eggplant parm and a delicious chocolate cake that my wife got for me last night. 39th birthday in the books. I drank a little tequila too, but that's for another time. That story. Our call-in number is 910-299-7535 if you would like to join the program between now and the top of the hour, of course, as we've run through a whole bunch of news here today. Let's bring it back to the local level for just a moment. As we highlighted earlier in the program, last night, the first listening session was held for those who are on the board of the New Hanover County Endowment. That's the 12-member board, I believe it is, overseeing the $1.25 billion in profits made from the sale of New Hanover Regional Medical Center. Folks had 3 minutes to speak about where they should be placing some of that money. We know based on what the county manager has laid out and what some of the commissioners made mention of last week surrounding the 3-year, $89 million framework that the county manager laid out to address school safety issues and community violence, that, one commissioner just wanted to dip into the profits from the hospital sale, write a check, and then figure out what to do. Others say, hey, let's pump the brakes and, all right, this is a great framework. Let's build details into that, and then we'll move forward with, a vote eventually. And hopefully, when it comes to accountability, one thing that we severely lack, particularly when it comes to government programs, its effectiveness. I mean, the war on poverty, the war on drugs. How much money do we spend on both of those issues? And, well, look where we're at on both of those issues. Well, let's keep spending more money and, let's write the check. December 1st will be the next listening session for the New Hanover County Endowment Board. You have a chance not only to speak then for a few minutes, but you can also detail your thoughts by going to their website at, I believe it's nhcendowmentfund.com. Let's see here. NHC Endowment Fund. I believe that's the website, and you can get some information on how you can move forward with your comments surrounding grants that, won't be available until September of next year, as told to us yesterday from the chair of that board, Spence Broadhurst. Of course, Spence was on our program countless times during the whole conversation surrounding the sale of New Hanover Regional Medical Center to Novant Health. So that's some of the news from our area following Tuesday night's meeting session. Of course, early voting continues here in the city of Wilmington, elsewhere with the municipal election day set for this upcoming Tuesday. Still extremely low voter turnout as, expected based on these odd year elections. We talk about just up to 5,000 votes, and you got a spot on city council. Statewide, the week ahead will be a busy one for our lawmakers within the North Carolina General Assembly. We heard yesterday from the Senate leader, Phil Barger, in his office. Negotiations continue on the budget. Increases in pay, bonuses for teachers, state employees. The sticking point right now, along with the Republican plan to slash taxes once again for individuals and corporations and businesses. And heck, some lawmakers in Raleigh want to eliminate the corporate tax rate altogether. Some not wanting to go that far down the line, though North Carolina has one of the lowest, or if not the lowest, corporate tax rate in all the country for those states that do implement such a tax. The redistricting maps are getting hashed out as well. North Carolina gaining a congressional seat based on the census data and the growth that we've seen across the Old North State over the past decade. As far as some of the districts, when it comes to the state, House, and Senate, they will remain largely unchanged, it looks like, from our vantage point, those within the Cape Fear region, though it has not yet been finalized just yet. And there will be plenty of lawsuits and noise. They never, again, when we try and talk about two sides of the story and presenting the whole story, they never really discuss the fact that for 120 years, Democrats ran the state and had their hand in the redrawing of districts and legislative maps, yet somehow, some way, they could never and have never lumped certain populations together to the benefit of, their politicians. It never happened 120 years. But as soon as Republicans are in charge, it happens every time they go back to redrawing the districts. It's amazing how that sort of works, right? Democrat good, Republican bad. 910-299-7535. Caller, good morning. We've got 2 minutes to go.
Yes, sir. Look back on the old maps, and you can see that it's crazy. It's like a crazy jigsaw puzzle. So when they start arguing, and granted, don't get me wrong, each side's trying to win for themselves.
Of course.
But they certainly can't look at those maps and say, oh, we don't do this. But on to the corporate tax. Here's my thought on that. You got the flat tax or the fair tax, which basically what it does is a point of sale type tax. When you go up there, it'd be approximately 23%, which is crazy. But then you got a choice, of course, not to buy it. But on the corporate tax, I did a little calculation one time on a $20,000 vehicle. About 23% of that is hidden taxes that's already baked in. When you walk up there on a $20,000 vehicle, about $4,700 of it is taxes that you don't see. You think you're paying for the vehicle, and then you got to pay 7% on top of that or whatever. So with the corporate taxes, if you just said, hypothetically, we'll have no corporate taxes, but our state, not income tax, but sales tax is going to be 23% on certain products or whatever. that may seem disastrous, but I think it would expose what the government's already doing. Because, you've said before, it's going to get passed along. They're not going to go, oh, yeah, we'll take the hit. They're going to pass it along. So we're already doing it. So on a $20,000 vehicle, $4,700 is nothing but taxes at some level that are baked in. So if we reduce corporate taxes, they come here.
Yeah.
And then, of course, we have to put it on the other end. And then when people go, oh, my God, how did you do that? Well, that's what's already there. We're just exposing it now. So now you see what you're dealing with. The government's already getting their stuff.
Oh, they're going to always get theirs to the demise of, you, the business owner, and the consumer. Government will always get theirs. We'll talk to you tomorrow.